Now you listen to me. I don't want any plastics. I don't want any ground floors. And I don't want to get married to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do. And you...
Okay. Dude, he's slept on, man. Zac Brown, man.
It's so good. They're fucking interesting. It's fine.
Dude, they're so musically gifted, dude.
It's,
Yeah.
I watched the video for Junkyard and they're like, the technology wasn't up to what the song was envisioned for. And I was like, what do you mean? Gosh.
Everything's good?
I just feel like his music has always, like the songs that he writes, I feel like apply directly to my life in so many different ways.
There's a massive depth to him.
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to Colder Weather, everybody's like, oh, it's a sad song, but like, girls will listen to it and they're like, this dude just didn't want to commit. And it's like, I've kind of felt that way.
Yeah.
I've felt where it's like, hey, like, I can't now because it's not the right time or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's just a weird little feeling.
Dude, Colder Weather is one of the greatest songs ever
Colder
made.
Weather, Free.
Free.
Not Where the Wind Blows. What am I thinking of? It's like the 10-minute song. Epic drum solo, epic violin solo.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Something Storm, right? Or
I don't know. I can't remember right now. It lives in my head all the time, but I just can't remember it. I will listen and I could repeat the whole solo.
What's your favorite? Do you have like a favorite album?
It's probably their first one. The way I put it is I have 3 top songs. So I have Southern Pride, the Marcus Keene version.
Okay.
That one's on there. Let me rephrase this. I have like 5, but 3. Okay. So Southern Pride, Free. That's just in my heart all the time. That is like the song of like my future. I'll turn that on and I'm like, yeah, this is right. You know, it's just so perfect. The other one is Junkyard. I love Junkyard. Just it's musically superior again. Just
that song goes hard.
It goes so hard. Your ears are just done after that. It's like there's no reason for me to listen to anything else. I got everything I needed. Oh no. I have 2 other ones. The one that we talked about.
Colder Weather? No. The one
that we can't remember.
Why can't I think of that?
I don't know either, man. It's so frustrating. Yeah. I can literally see
Bittersweet is probably one of my top ones.
Bittersweet's good.
Yeah. Colder Weather's up there.
Mango Tree.
Mango Tree is good.
I grew up like in jazz band. Mango Tree came out and I was like, this is perfect. This is all that I need.
Is that in the Jekyll and Hyde?
Yes.
Dude, that album is
fire, wild,
dude.
Man. It's like, why do they name it Jekyll and Hyde? Listen to it. They hit everything. They just go from one spectrum to the other one. It's beautiful.
And the message in their songs, dude, are always just... You
should
listen to Zac Brown Band, dude.
This clip's just going to be titled, 2 Zacs Talk About Zac Brown.
Zach's talking about Zacs that are awesome.
Zach's talking about another one of their kind.
All the Zac artists that I've listened to, which is all of 2 of them, ZBB and then Zach Williams, I relate to 100% with their music. Not because of a name, but because of everything that's been in there.
I've never really met a Zac that I hate. Like, I have a lot of great Zacs in my life.
There's just something about him, dude.
I met one.
You didn't meet one?
I did not like.
There's always some bad apples.
I was actually the only good Zac in my school growing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's probably an arrogant statement.
I'm
the only one that graduated that I know of.
Oh, so, dang.
I think we had 3. We had 3. And I remember I was like, there's more. And then one got kicked out because he got busted with weed like 8 times. And I don't remember what happened to the other one.
Man.
Well, guess he's didn't do something memorable.
He was a Zac with like no 4th letter. It's probably like a ZAC.
Oh, ew.
Yeah, he could have been one of those weird ones like ZAK.
That's Zac Brown Band, though.
It is Zac Brown Band. But there's ZBB. They're better.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, so how do you is your name Zachary? Is that your full name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you spell Zac?
ZACH.
Okay.
So they're different.
Yeah. What's really
good.
Cool, what's really cool about that is my mom, when I was like 3 or 4, was like, how do you want your name to be spelled? And I was like, I think about it now, and I'm like, didn't you already put it on the birth certificate?
She's like 50-50 chance.
Right. She was like, hopefully I got it right. But I remember she was like, how do you want to spell it out? And I had like we had this little desk, and I was just like, nasty little A-C, and I was like, H. Nice. But if I just like scribble real fast, the H's look like K's, so nobody really knows.
Okay.
That's true.
So
yeah.
Well, Zac, welcome to 2nd Floor Experience. You've been a loyal listener and supporter from day 1, episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to I want to put a disclaimer out there to everyone listening. This is probably going to be our most unhinged podcast we've ever had.
I'm going to keep it under control.
I don't want you to, dude.
Let it go.
There's so many different things on the line if I don't.
There's no way we can bleep it more than we did with Lawrence's.
Yeah.
There's no
seriously.
way. We've already set the bar so high.
So I brought a knife to school. Let's start with that.
This whole podcast is going to be bleep, and then I bleep, and then I... No, but so we met at SAGU.
Yep.
2021?
Yes.
Okay. At a house at some random person's
dude's house. Not even their house. A rented house.
It was an Airbnb. And we just started talking, man. And then a friendship was born.
Dude.
I added another great Zac to my life.
It was the stuff of legends.
It was.
It was wonderful. Meeting you, sitting down and being, went to this party and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I got invited by this random guy and
Shout out to Kyle.
Kyle Fortner's legend. Don't bleep out his last name. Leave it there. Let him be exposed. This is what we mean. So Kyle invited me and I showed up and you were just like this quiet dude who was talking to Kyle's parents. And I was like, oh, so he likes to talk to adults. And I was like, he's probably got some mature things to say. And so I gave you a brief testimony and then you started asking questions. And I was like, I like you. Just immediately. Not that was traumatic. You have trauma. It's just something that you just can't go to sleep at night with. And I'm like, no, this dude just straight up asked me questions like, what are things that I could do better for my family in future? And I was like, you're amazing. Like 100%. Like, I don't care what it was. At that very moment, I was willing to die. I was willing to go to war. Like for you, for any reason. So
all I remember is you were wearing boots and jeans. And I was like, I wear boots and jeans, but I wasn't wearing them that night. I was like, I look like a chotch, man.
You had the classic Texas vest on with the long sleeve rolled up.
Oh, okay. Okay. I had a little bit in there. Yeah. But shout out to Kyle. He started it all.
Legend.
That's what I was going to say. If you're easily offended, you might want to just move on to the next episode because Zach's more on the truth side of grace. There's the grace and truth.
There's grace, but people didn't give me truth when I asked for it. And you guys find out about that later. So I really give truth in any context.
It's definitely your strength.
I'm wiser now about it. But yeah, we'll drop bombs.
Let them have it, dude. Let them have it. We need more truth.
Okay, so that's a little bit how we met. We were friends throughout SAGU. Mm-hmm. Take us back. Little Zac. What was he like? How did he start?
Dude was never little.
Never little?
Never
Wait,
little.
how old are you now?
You're the youngest in your family, too.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm 25.
Okay.
So I was born 1998, and I actually, before I was even born, really, God had a hand in my life. You know what our name means? You know, like the definition of our name?
I remember looking up when I was like 8 years old, but no, I don't remember.
So there's two. Zac has a definition of the name, and then the Zwilkey clan had a motto, and I believe it was in Latin. It said "Favente Dio," which means with God's favor. Our name means the Lord has remembered. Started off like that. Okay, some of you guys, if you believe in predestination, now's your time to claim it. I personally don't. But before I was even born, like I don't dance now. It's not because I'm AG. It's not because I go to Assemblies of God school. I did break dance the whole time in the womb. Like I was always moving, always kicking until about 3 days before I was born. And my mom prayed and she was like, Lord, why is my baby not moving? Like, dude was moving, he was grooving. What's going on? And she prayed and asked God, and he was like, don't worry, your baby's fine. My hand is upon him. 3 days she prayed that prayer and it was the same answer. Finally was born. And when I came out of the womb, they delivered, found out my umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck 3 times.
3 times?
3 times. And so like my face is purple. I wasn't getting anything. I was getting things, but like the doctors were like, if he moved even a little bit, he was gone. So it was like immediately from the get-go, like life was just supposed to be like this. Yeah. It's supposed to be intense, supposed to have some sort of, I don't know. I think there's too many times that I should be dead, that God has really just moved in my life to keep me safe. So
wow.
I grew up in Barstow, California. It's the middle of nowhere in the desert. Del Taco, it's where the original ones were. Shout out to Del Taco. It's the best.
Are those still around?
Yes. But those 3 are the best. Don't go anywhere outside of it. Please don't. It sucks. It's not worth your time. It's not worth investing in. Just stay away from it. But so I grew up there, never appreciated the desert for probably until I was like 17. But as I was growing up, I really just, I was born into a good family. I had 2 siblings that were brothers and an oldest sister. So it was Ashley, Austin, and Noah. And me and Noah were kind of just the same size ever since I was like 3. What's your sibling's name?
I have a brother named Austin.
Oh my gosh.
I was also born in 98. And I too had like I had like breathing problems when I was born. There was a point where I think my mom says that like my lips turned blue because I was having breathing problems. They had to like put me on some kind of machine for a while. Look at all these connections.
I didn't know any of that
Same
from
people.
either of you two.
We were just split in half. that story about Solomon where he's like cut the baby in half right here. Immediate. That's
crazy,
by the way. So I grew up, I was in a Christian household, and I mean, as early as 3, I remember being like, Jesus, I know I'm a sinner. Come into my heart and into my life. And I remember like walking around being like, God, this is my bed. This is my room. Like I just had an immediate love for the Lord. It wasn't something that, my parents were like, you're going to be a Christian. I grew up in a good household. Like we made our own choices and we sought wisdom. We were trained to really pursue Christ. And so for me, that was never really an option to not do it for a long time. And that was the driving factor. So, I mean, I grew up going into like 5th grade. They had us write a paper and they're like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I was the youngest of 4 siblings. What athletically could I compete with any of my siblings at that I was the same skill level as them? There was nothing, right? But I was super competitive. And so we had video games.
So it was a skill issue.
It was a skill issue. It really was. So I remember being really young and my parents were like, all right, my mom took us to Best Buy, told me and my brothers, pick out a game. It was a beautiful day. Loved it. My brother Noah got MLB 2005. My brother Austin got Pikmin 2, and I got Super Smash Brothers Melee. And from there on,
what a great choice.
My esports career, immediate growth. So I remember playing that game to be as good as all my brothers in it. And my mom would just be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? You firefighter? And I'm like, I want to play video games. She's like, that's not real. Figure it out. Do something else, right? It's the standard message that it's good reality to actually hope for. Something solid, something stable. In 5th grade, I remember writing a paper and the teacher's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, I just want to be a good husband and father. Like that was the job. She's like, well, that's not a job. And I was like, what's up with all you people telling me what I can and can't do? I don't like this. So as I'm growing up, just had a lot of good experiences, was competing in sports and doing all sorts of stuff. When I was about 12, we went to the beach with my brothers and mom, and she's a tax preparer. So in April, like at the end of every April, it's always a celebration because she just worked 4 months straight, 80-hour weeks. All of our grades were bad, and then she celebrates with us. Then she finds out our grades are bad, and then we get beat up, and then we have to go get all our grades back up. That was the cycle of a spring semester for us. But it was the celebration day. So we go to the beach, and we're at this place called Balboa, and the slope there, the actual slope of the beach is just super inverted. It's not like flat, it's not slightly, it's just massive. And that's just because the undertow comes in, the waves come in, and they just suck it all out. And Noah was like, I have to run to the bathroom. And my mom's like, okay, I'll go with Noah. Zach, you stay with Austin. And I was like, okay. Me and Austin were like, we're going to go for one last wave. One last wave. It's always the last one.
It's always the last one.
The last one. So we're about to dive in, and Austin's like, this is a huge swell. And he dives in. Last word I heard was swell. And my feet got caught by the wave and just took me. And I was just swimming, trying so hard to swim up. And I just felt like I gave it all, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was like, all right, Lord, I'll see you in heaven. At 12 years old, I came to terms with my reality and my salvation in Christ, where I was just like, yeah, I've done what I need to do, I think, and I don't think I'm getting out of this. So God, unless you got something, I'll see you soon. I don't understand how a 12-year-old thinks of that. That was just kind of there. And God spoke to me audibly underwater. And this is where everyone's gonna be like, that's not possible. Well, God's the impossible. So bring it on. Spoke to me audibly underwater and was like, swim up and live. I have greater plans for you.
Dang.
And I was like, what? Okay. So I swim up. Lifeguard came out and got me. My brother came out and got me and took me back in. And I'm like hysterically crying. I heard God speak underwater. I thought I was drowning. I was ready to end my life. Not end it, but just be like, okay, I have no chance. I'm good.
Yeah.
And we get up to the beach. My mom and my brother are still coming back from the bathroom. There's this older man sitting next to where we were at on the beach. He has this watch on and he's like, man, I thought you guys were goners. In my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, no crap, me too. I thought I was done. Like, thanks for sitting there doing nothing, guy. You didn't want to come save me, right?
For real.
And he goes, you were underwater for over 2 minutes. And I was like, huh, I'd never held my breath up to that point over a minute. Still now I
Dang.
haven't held it over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I was like, there's something that wasn't me at work here. Like, there's no reason I should have been under that long and survived. And so I was just like, okay, we're gonna hold on to that. And kind of from there on, I've had a bigger affluency to hearing what the Spirit says, what God says, how He speaks, not just reading Scripture, but like little random words where it's like, this doesn't make sense, but I'm gonna trust it and find out. Visions and dreams. Actually going to SAGU. I probably should have been there earlier, and esports at the school should have started earlier. But I didn't listen. And I won't make that mistake again. I was like 14, went to summer camp, and had a vision that I was supposed to hop on a train 3 times. And each time I was about to get on, I saw like a poster or something. I got distracted, and the train moved on. But I was able to run and catch up to it. So I did this 3 times, but at the last time I couldn't catch up to it, and the dream kind of ended. And I was like, it's a little strange. So kind of grew up, figured out what I wanted to do, was going to pursue a degree in youth ministry, felt called to go to youth, and SAGU seemed like the right option to do it. I had 2 other colleges lined up. One of them was TCU. They declined me by God's sovereignty. Thank you. Did not want to go to that godforsaken school. The second one was another one called Anderson in South Carolina, and it was okay. Yeah, it was one of my options, but I didn't get a $14,000 scholarship because I had a GPA miscalculation of 0.01. So like, the minimum requirement to get it was a 3.5. I had a 3.49.
What?
Holy crap.
But I went, they invited me to go out and interview anyways. And they're like, oh, you did the best. And I was like, so that means like I'm good, right? And they were like, no. I was like, okay, well, forget you guys. So I ended up talking to my parents about it, graduated high school, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table and my mom's like, do you want to go to college? And I was like, no, I hate school. I've never liked it, never wanted to be in it. And she was like, okay, well, why are you going for a youth degree? You're not going to make any money. You're going to acquire debt. You're not going to be able to provide for the family, which is the thing that you want. And just kind of broke it down. And I was like, And I knew God had called me, but still I was like, no, I'm not going to go. So I didn't go to SAGU. Just didn't see the opportunity for me. Didn't think that was what I wanted to do. And I ended up meeting a woman, and I was like, oh, she's pretty cute. Started dating, and our relationship progressed on. And so we ended up getting married in 2018 in the beginning of the year. And so I was 20?
Dang,
Maybe.
dude.
Yeah. So I was 20, ended up working at my dad's State Farm office. We can talk about my parents later. They're amazing. They're wonderful.
They are.
Sorry, just even thinking about it, I'm so grateful. Started working, passed my insurance tests, and had a full-time job, and really started to feel like youth ministry was still the call. I served in youth in my church, and I did things. I even interviewed for a position one time. The Holy Spirit told me no. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I didn't go. Turned out to be a good option to not do it. But I really felt like the youth was not being hit. And I was still playing video games. I was still fairly active. You know, I've had a few injuries, cracked my femur, didn't get it fixed. So it kind of left me a little crippled for some things. But really was like, Lord, what are we doing? What's the plan here? And felt the nudge again to go to SAGU. And like, you can look at the SAGU admissions account. I think it's the admissions one. Scroll down to like 2019 or something. You'll find a picture of me on there. Young me with my ex-wife. And it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. I've never asked them to remove it. I'm just like, this is pretty funny. It's like, I don't even remember the caption. But anyway, so I was supposed to go again, right? And we just decided not to.
So that was number 2.
That was number 2. We decided not to. In place of that, though, I felt like God had called me to start my own ministry. And just playing video games and reaching out to kids. Barstow is a poor town. You either skated and smoked weed, went in the military, or played sports, or worked at the railroad. Like that, those were your options.
Wow.
And so like if you were a kid and none of those 4 applied to you, you had nothing to do in that town. Wasn't entirely safe to go walk the streets. There wasn't much going on for youth sports or anything like that. Like they had soccer, but that lasted from like August to November. So again, if you're not a soccer player, how are we ministering to you? How are we reaching out to you? And I ended up watching a few streamers on Twitch, and I just kind of saw like whether they won or lost, they had no joy of the Lord, and my heart broke for them. And I was like, I wonder if this isn't just a one-time thing. And so I had a few game systems, had the experience, played a lot of games growing up. I ended up being better than all my siblings and better than most people I ever played against. And so I was like, well, I'll just start a gaming ministry. So I invited 12 dudes to come over to my house for the new Super Smash Brothers tournament or game. And I hosted my first tournament. And turned out really well. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. So every week I invited groups of guys to come over and we would have what are called friendlies, which for like tournament use is like, hey, we're just going to practice against each other for fun. But what I did with it was like weekly Devo, I'm teaching you how to play Smash. And then once a month we'd have a tournament. The tournaments were big. Like we'd bring all of our stuff over to the house. And this was hosted at like a duplex for a while because it was just my place. And like, so we were just hosting. Yeah. Like it was small, like, I don't know, 600 maybe square feet. And so like me, my then wife, and I had 3 dogs and like all this, we were putting 12 people in just like a living room.
Heck yeah, dude.
It was epic. And so we were just running tournaments and stuff. And it ended up growing even to the point where I was like, okay, I can't host it in my duplex. And I don't know where we can host it. And so I asked my church and I was like, hey, pastor, can we host these Smash tournaments? We've been doing ministry with this and stuff. And he goes, you guys can host Mario Kart, but you can't host Smash. And I was like, well, why can't we do that? And he goes, because it's a fighting game. And I was like,
can't have that, man. Can't have that.
Can't fight.
Can't have Mario beating up Pikachu.
Can't do that, I guess.
Yeah.
We can read about people being slain in scripture all day, but can't do that. So I mean, the pastor is the head of the church.
Yeah.
He gets to decide. So I wasn't going to go against him and I wasn't going to push and be like, well, you're making a bad decision. We're seeing blah, blah, blah. I was just like, okay, fine. If you're not going to support it, I will still do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Really feel that call. Felt it strongly. Felt like that's what God wanted me to do. So in 2019, in August, like a few days before my birthday, me and my parents bought a house and I started hosting the tournaments out of there. And so still everyone coming over. The group had grown to like 36 different dudes. We had built in like 4 teams and team captains, and I was leading the team captains. I didn't realize it, but I was doing ministry with like the same models that most churches are doing. It was just like a thing. I was just like, yeah, I think this is what we should do. No influence at all from anyone on like, we need to break this up into teams. We need to do this. I kept the stats for everything. And so we went through the rest of 2019 and it was super good. For the most part for ministry. So it was like 2018, 2019, 2020, part of 21 was how long this ministry lasted. In 2019 of August, the same kind of timeline that I got a house, my cousin from Florida was like, hey, he was just having some troubles over there, like spiritually, and just like needed to get out. And so we were like, hey, come, my whole family was like, come over here, we'll take care of you. He was my age. And I was like, I've always wanted to have a relationship with this cousin. And I just kind of, like, I've never liked him. Like, there's always that one thing where it's like, I don't trust you and I don't know why. Just the Holy Spirit kind of thing of like, keep your eye open. Mm-hmm. And I remember just like it turning into anger at some points. And I was like, okay, I need to shut that down entirely. So I just did. And he came, stayed with my parents, lived life with me and my wife. And we would take him to youth group and he would serve with us there and do all sorts of stuff. And so the ministry went strong until about December of 2019. And my wife, I just saw that there's some issues in our marriage. Like I wasn't being perfect, but I don't think any man in any marriage feels like he's doing good enough. I really don't. I don't think that they ever think they are, which is tough because there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of like decision making that needs to be done. I was maybe 21 at this time. So it's 21, working a full-time job. I'd gotten my associate's degree at our community college.
You're working at Starbucks, right?
No, I'd moved to State Farm.
After
Starbucks. Gotcha. So I mean, I worked a full-time job and I was a full-time student and did 2 ministries.
Yeah.
Like I was doing a lot.
That's a
And
lot.
whenever I was home, it was like, okay, got to train for Smash, got to do this. And I really didn't pay attention to my marriage a whole lot, I don't think. And so I remember there was a point like December 4th or 3rd where I went up and I'd asked my youth pastor, I was like, hey, I think something's wrong. And I think something's not right. And him and his wife were like, no, you're doing a great job. You're doing great. What I didn't have the words to convey, because I've never had to deal with something that's like emotional or having to deal with more intellectual. Like I was the guy. I could set my mind to do anything and it would be done. My dad's the same way. My dad never went to college. He got married at 20 to my mom at 18. They had a baby within like a year and a half, 2 years, moved to Vegas. My dad went, tried to find work. They ended up moving back, rebuilding a house, building his own work up, became a coffee salesman for 16 years, then worked for State Farm. Then he's now like the president of the college board at our community college. Again, has no degree. If he's good enough to set his mind to something and do it. So I inherited that trait. And so anything I wanted to do could be done. That was me. The possibilities were endless. If I wanted it to be done, I could make it happen. I could work hard enough. I could do all these things. What I didn't know how to do was to be like, hey, I need help. And so being like, hey, I don't think something's right was me asking for help. But nobody had either A, heard me say it, or I couldn't convey it well. A few days pass and my wife's like, I think I'm just going to go move in with my dad for a few weeks. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? Like, you have a whole house. Why are you going to go move in with your parents? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I was just like, what is happening? And I remember texting my brother and I was like, hey, I don't know what's happening. Like, I need some help. And he was like, how about you quit being a jerk to your wife? And I was like, what do I do? I reached out to the pastor, reached out to like my closest sibling, and did a lot of like trying to find and seek wisdom. And I just really didn't feel like anyone really cared. And it was rough. And so I went through like all of Christmas alone. And even when you're like with people, you're alone.
Yeah.
And what are you supposed to do with that? You know, everyone's celebrating the birth of Christ and it's like, Jesus was born, died for my sins. Amazing. I don't have any purpose right now.
Literally.
And you guys
my life is crumbled.
Yeah, you guys are having a great time. Like
I don't want more
I
shit.
woke up in an empty bed today.
Yeah. 100%.
How do you manage
That's real, dude.
How do you manage that? And so I didn't know what to do. Divorce was never a word for me, wasn't an option. Was never something that I wanted to be in my life. My parents came from 2 divorced households. Each of them, their parents were divorced. Druggies, alcoholics, abusive.
Wow.
None of them were saved. My dad ended up leading half of his family to Christ. Same with my mom. Dang. And so it was like, I came from like the rebuilt, broke all things.
Gotcha.
Relationship. Like there was no curse that should have been on me. Right.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of go there and be like, shoot, the youngest kid, the successful kid, golden child. I don't know if you listen to Gable Price and Friends, but they have a song.
You listen to Gable Price and Friends? What the heck? Dude, what in the world? What's going on?
It's one of the songs where he's like,
really good friends is what's going on.
One of the songs he talks about, he's like, golden boy lost his purpose. I'm terrified. Like, just like that. No, it wasn't the golden boy. My older brother went to TCU on a full ride with a 4.84 scholarship. He got the chancellor, or 4.84 GPA, got the chancellor scholarship, now works for an engineering company and had like a really high position. I'm not the golden boy. I was number 2. Okay. So I had kind of the same standard of like excellence for me. So getting to that point was like, I failed everything. The one thing that I wanted to do when I grew up, be a husband and father, a good husband and father.
Yeah.
My wife's not even with me. So I had to walk through December alone and had to walk through January. And I reached out to our head pastor, tried to get some counseling, tried to mend the relationship. And there was never amicable, like, hey, I want to go to counseling with you. It was like, I was like, I'm seeking everything. And she didn't want to take that step. We ended up going on like one last little date just to see. It was her idea. And I was like, yeah, we'll do it. And the Holy Spirit really just kind of spoke to me and was like, there's something missing in her. It's me. Like we went and I could just tell like she didn't have her own relationship with Christ. Her relationship with Christ was from her grandparents and then it was from me.
Yeah.
And I was pouring out into everyone and everything and I never took the time to be poured into. And I mean, humans, we're broken vessels. We're cracked. There's whatever we have is dripping out of us. So unless we're constantly being filled up, and especially if you're pouring into someone else or something else, unless you're being filled, you are empty. And there comes a point where you have nothing left.
Yeah.
Right. And so I
wasn't laughing at that. I was just laughing at your delivery is impeccable.
I laugh at so many things. They're like, do you have dark humor? Do you have trauma humor? And I'm like, it's hilarious, isn't it? But I really just got to the point where I was like, okay. And so I talked to my parents, talked to a few counselors, talked to a few people, and I was like, they were like, the decision is yours. You have no proof of anything. I have no proof if she was fully apostate. I had no proof if she had had an affair. I just really felt like the Holy Spirit was like, you need to let her go. Dang. And so I was like, if I let her go, you need to justify this. You need to justify everything that I walked through.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm the one committing my own sins. No question about that. I take responsibility for every action I've ever made, whether on purpose or accident. But when I sat there and I told the Holy Spirit, I was like, this is everything I ever wanted. I checked off every box I ever wanted by the time I was 21. And I was like, you need to show me something better. You need to show me something different. Because if what I'm doing isn't right, and this is what it comes to, self-made, do it all yourself kind of guy, there's something wrong. And so from January on till August of 2020, like COVID hit in March, we didn't care. Barstow didn't care. That was not the reason that year sucked for me, right? It's not an issue at all. I just wrestled with God. And I was telling Joseph before this too, I was like, I can take the name and stories of anyone that's in scripture and I can relate. I wrestled in every way possible. I was going to church for 8 months and people were like, where's your wife? And I'm like, what do I tell you? God told me to leave my wife? That's not the right word. And people are going to think I'm crazy.
Wow.
What am I supposed to say? Right? Yeah. Where's your wife? At home, probably with someone else. I don't know. What's the issue here?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of had to walk through it. And I had a few key people. My parents, again, solid, walked with me, loved me unconditionally, and got my mind straight with a few things, few perceptions, few things of like, I would sit there and I'm like, well, I'm a failure. And they're like, shut up. Put your big boy boots on, grow a pair, and walk forward. Like, they didn't let me stay down. I mourned, I wept. I wrote this series in my phone notes called The Feels because I didn't know how to talk to God. Like, I heard him tell me what to do, but I was like, Lord, I don't know how to give you anything. I don't know what words to pray. I don't know what else. And he's like, you give me everything. And so The Feels was just like, anytime I had anything, it was just, I dumped it all. I didn't filter it. I didn't make it appeasable. Like, when someone asks you to pray, have you ever been that guy where they're like, yeah, Joseph's the born again Christian, let him pray. They're looking for like the eloquent words of speech.
Yes.
This is not what that is at all. This was like, Lord, I am tired. I feel pointless. I feel worthless. Every decision I make is this. I can't go with 3 days without thinking about this moment. Lord, I feel alone every second of the day.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't something that you just read casually.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not something that you really say casually either.
Yeah.
If I went and told anyone was in that book, they'd be like, do you know that SAGU counseling has a free counseling service for anyone? Like, that's the response that people would get.
Yeah.
Right. But I just gave it. I gave it all. And so I walked with God for 8 months, wrestled with him, struggled with him. I was overweight. So I ended up golfing every day after work and used that to just talk to him and play and do whatever. Lost a bunch of weight because of it. Turned out really good. In August, I had received letters in the mail or via email from my uncle. And I was like, this guy never really reaches out to me. And he says, keep these confidential, don't show anyone. And I opened it up and I found letters between my ex-wife and my cousin that dated back from October of 2019, talking about times from August of 2019, about an affair that they'd had. And I know some people say, like, some people have vulgar mouths. What I read in there is no one needs to see. Like, it is just vile and obscene and wicked. And so I read that, and I was just like, sat down at our kitchen table, read it, put my phone down, and I remember thinking immediately, I knew where she was. She'd kept in contact. She tried to play it cool this whole time. And
What?
he went out, did whatever she wanted. He went out and left, kind of did whatever he wanted. They were together. And I tried to play it cool, and I was like, I can go to jail. This is where I see the Instagram reel coming in. I can go to jail for murder. Like, immediately, that was my thought. I was like, there's no, like, there needs to be vengeance. There needs to be justification for this.
That's a natural response.
I walked through 8 months of crap for you guys to go out and live your lives in sin. Why am I the one that's suffering and you guys are the ones that get to do whatever? And then there's the second time I heard God's audible voice. He says, vengeance is mine. I will repay. And he also told me, he who hasn't sinned cast the first stone. Dude, I went from like 0 to hero so quick. I was here. I was like, I'm ready to go to jail. To I was like, God, I'm sorry. Put me in jail. Like, I'm a sinner. I'm the worst of these. And so I was like, immediately delivered all my anger. Wow. And like all of my rage, all of my jealousy. And I was like, what do you want me to do? He was like, go to SAGU like I told you to. It's third time, man. Third time. And as soon as I knew it, I was like, oh shoot. And that vision from like 14 years old came in where it was like, you missed the train twice, dude. This is your last one. And so I'd done ministry still during this time. We ended up hosting like church in the park services. And I was like, okay, if you're telling me to go to SAGU, we'll see. Because we were hosting worship in the park. Like, I was getting the chance to preach and set others up to preach. And we were leading songs and doing crazy things in our town. It was wonderful. But I remember it kind of got confirmed to me where I was like, Lord, this is amazing. I was just watching one of the events and he's like, yeah, but you're not supposed to be here. And I was like, okay, I get it. I'm gone. I'll leave. So I applied to SAGU. I didn't think they would accept me. You know, in the handbook says they don't accept people that are divorced.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. That was 2020, fall of 2020. It was in their handbook. So I applied to SAGU and I was like, they're not even going to accept me. Well, I got accepted. It was conditional. They wanted me to go to phrenesis, which was things that I'd already worked out myself with the Lord. They also wanted me to go to counseling, which I already worked out with myself and the Lord. So I was fine. It didn't matter.
Okay, let me just pause. Let me slow you down. Let's just slow this train.
I'm flying. There's so much more.
There's so much more, and the SAGU chapter is a whole other chapter, which is why I want to stop you right now and just so I'm like trying to process this, because there's things that you've shared this with me, but there's different things that you just said right now that are new to me too.
I've never given the full story.
Okay. Yeah.
And with the exception of like very, very, very close friends and family where I've had like a day to sit down.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because there's so much that goes into it. I forgot that you had to spend 8 months without knowing what was going on.
Yep.
And you had to, so was the start of the 8 months when you guys decided to get divorced?
Start of 8 months was the end of January.
Was that like, I'm saying, but when y'all separated, that was when you guys separated?
No. When she separated in the beginning of December,
okay,
I was still going for
December 2018 or
2019.
Okay.
It's like December 12th, 2019, something like that.
Okay.
She said, she's like, I'm moving out.
Yeah, out.
Okay. And then when did you guys go on that date you mentioned, that last one?
End of January.
End of January. Okay. And that's when you guys were like, that's when you were like, okay, I'm going to get divorced from her. Okay. And you started finalizing that, or would you made the verbal statement?
Made the decision.
Made the decision.
My divorce was not finalized until August 4th, 2021.
Wow. That's right. Okay.
So you knew me as still a married man.
Right. Technically, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so she moves out.
Yeah.
At the end of December, and then at the end of January, that's when you have. So at the end of January 2020, that's when you have the date, and that's when basically the
Kobe
decision
died like the week after or something.
Man, dude, that was dark January.
That was
for us, dude. That was dark
Okay, let me
January.
just pause because when I first met Zach after you guys had all left, because this was 2020 when Zach came to SAGU.
2021, spring of 21.
Spring of 2021. It was me and Reed. No, it was just me in the hub. Because Reed had he had to get out of the dorms. So I was like the last one of our second floor guys. And when I met Zach, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy would have loved second floor.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were going through that the same time that we were all just confirmed it for me. That was 100% right. Because what he's referencing called Dark January is that exact period of time on second floor. A ton of stuff went wrong. Like one of the guys broke up with his girlfriend, like longtime girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is that the
Someone's
same?
like dog died.
Yeah, it was my dog.
Your
Yeah, my dog died. I got like this fat speeding ticket in like a construction zone. It was so stupid. And then, who
Wasn't there? Hold on. I'm sorry. Weren't you guys part of the group where a student died?
Yeah.
Was that the same month?
No, that was no.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, that was the year or two prior. Yeah.
Yeah, that lived on
But-
in like rumors.
Yeah.
Never had confirmation about
Yeah.
anything.
But
But,
Zach was friends with him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah. That was a crazy time. That was actually that was just like a few weeks before Sam's wedding, I think.
Wow.
So that would have been 2018 or 2019.
There was something else that...
But someone got like money stolen from them, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember like what all happened to who, but
Just things
great
kept
month.
going, and we were like, this is a terrible month.
yeah.
Because we had just all come back from winter break, like, let's get the spring
Yep.
semester going. We were like optimistic, and it was just
Yeah.
one thing after
Downhill.
another, which is crazy that was the same thing that was going on with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That timeline was like January, end of January. I was like, okay, gonna just trust you, God. February was just like emotional wreck month where they were like, okay, you're stepping down. Both of you guys are stepping down from youth group. And I was like, makes sense. I don't have anything at church anymore.
Yeah.
The next month, my pastor was like, you're going to run our media. And then the church shut down everything. And so I did all of our streams
Okay.
and sound and whatever. And then we moved all of our church outside. And so I was doing the media for that too.
Awesome.
That was like the anchor for me to be at the church.
Okay. And there's so much that you hit on. I'm only going to just point out a few things
I
that
can be here all night.
we very well might be. The radical obedience and humility that you had to come to terms with was such a canon event for your life.
Yep.
That I think you would have how would your life have been so different if you had not responded with such grace? You literally could be in jail, first of all.
Yep.
Not to mention a myriad of other things. So I think that your radical response, and not just that, but you had your faith, not your parents' faith. Like you mentioned, that was a huge key to this whole transformation, this whole time that you didn't just like go off the deep end, which I think any normal person would have done.
No, I was like drowning in water every day. That's the
Yes.
best way I can explain how I lived those 8 months.
And the fact that those people did not hear your cry for help frustrates the crap out of me.
Yep.
Because they should have known you as for who you were at the time, as someone who clearly is extremely driven, have all the characteristics of not being necessarily emotionally aware or capable of talking about your feelings. And for a man, it's extremely difficult to go to someone else and say, I'm having problems with the most intimate relationship in my life.
Yep.
How many people have someone that they can go into and talk to about that? You reached out to a few people, and sadly, no one's perfect. I've done it to people where I've just missed that moment too. Yep. I've just not had the wisdom, but they really did not help you in that situation. Not to mention how lonely you were through all of that. Imagine if someone had just said, Zach, like asked you a question like, Zach, what's going on? And just let you talk. what would that have changed for you? How much would you have been able to process?
I don't think I would have been able to give it. And now let's go back. I'm very, very full of grace for everyone that was in my life at that time.
Of course.
So I have no resentment. In the same way I don't have the same resentment for my ex-wife and my cousin. I have no resentment for them. It's not entirely their burden to bear. If it was their burden, it would have been given to them. And so reaching out for help in that way for me was like, I tried, you guys didn't get it. But what happens to me is not because you didn't get it. What happens to me is because of what I did. It's whatever I chose, whatever options have come my way. Some of the times you get to play the cards you're dealt and it turns out well. Other times you don't really get to use the cards. And you can't blame the dealer. And you can't blame the people that are playing the same game because they have better cards than you.
Dang.
It's very true.
Just sit there with the cards that you have and you got to make the right decision.
Yeah.
You've got to make the best one. That means you fold and you tap out. I mean, not out of life, of course, but
yeah,
you get out of that game. Yeah, maybe what you need to do. So for that first point, how useful would it have been to have open dialogue where where someone's listening to me? There's no correction, no advice, no nothing. I don't know. I really don't. I like to seek wisdom and everything. I like people telling me advice because I get to choose and discern it. And like someone will tell me something, and then if I do it, they're like, "Oh yeah, he just listens to this person wholeheartedly." Like people that I think we've experienced this. Let me rephrase this. I think anyone that's gone to SAGU has heard this thing. Oh yeah, they do their decisions because of their parents. Or they only act this way because their professor told them. Or this is just, it's what they've grown up with. They haven't experienced other cultures. I know you might have thought this about me before because you introduced the 2nd Floor Experience and I was like, this would be pretty cool, but not for me. Like, I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion, right? For me, in that way, it's like, I don't want to hear about anyone else's culture. Like, I'm just going to make my own decisions. That was me. So if someone like let me vent and just kind of fully unload, it may have been good. But I cherish so much more that I did it with God because that has carried me so much farther than just one person or two people. It would have been what it could have been good. But I also don't think anyone was able to handle what I had to say. And I don't think there's anyone that I could have said it without any sort of judgment or sin being made. Like, think about Job. Everything was taken away from him. And he cried out to God and was like, "This sucks. Why are we doing this? How did this happen? I'm still talking to you." He talked to God and brought it to him. That is where glory is seen and found.
Yeah. And he also went to friends.
He had
families
friends.
and didn't really quite get the answer that he was looking for.
And isn't it interesting at the very end of the book where I might have pointed this out to you before, but like where you're saying how he was angry at God but at least he talked to God.
Yep.
At the end of the book of Job, God ridicules his friends who were at times defending God.
Yep.
Because God does not need us to defend him. Nope. And he did not reprimand Job other than to humble him, of course.
Yeah.
But he didn't reprimand him for being angry because he was being relational with God.
Yep.
And that's what you did.
Yep. And that has been something that's just absolutely carried me. That's my number one skill. Is bringing no matter what I have straight to the Lord. Where it's like, "Lord, these people were stupid today." And he's like, "I created them." I'm like, "Yeah, my bad." Right? Like those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, I think something that you did that's so huge is when you talked about writing out your feelings and just being completely honest. Like there was no
Jesus glitter.
Yeah. Like you're not holding back at all, because I don't think a lot of people realize that the Bible is full of that. So many of the prophets and David, and you can read in the Psalms of,
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Of these people who are just fed up with God and they're at the end of their road. And they are literally, like, you can read in the Bible how they say how, "God, I wish I just would have never even been born."
Yep.
Like, just kill me now, pretty much, because they're so frustrated with what's going on around them. But God wants that. I think God wants your true emotion, just to let it out, just be completely vulnerable with him, because he can take it. Like it's not, it's like he's afraid of it, and he's not gonna, I don't know, be angry at you or destroy you for that. I think the important part is that you are going to him no matter what, and you're just being real, because you can treat God like a person, because he is alive. Like that's what we believe, right? So you can treat him like he is listening to you, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, and that's the hardest part. But yeah, I thought that was huge.
Yeah, it took a lot of heartache to learn that, but it is huge.
Yeah,
it's
like it feels like you are so driven that God had to put a cinder block on the brake just to get you to turn to where he wanted you to go.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. So, I mean, we can get to SAGU in a second, but just kind of one of the points I want to touch on is the esports program didn't start till 2021. It was supposed to start in 2016 when I graduated. I don't think I would have learned what I needed to learn, or it would have been probably something that I didn't want to endure if I went to SAGU first.
So you're telling me that God uses all things for the good of those who love him?
Something like that, yeah. I wonder where that's written down at.
I don't know.
Can we get a fact check on that?
Probably a good place. No, dude, go into the SAGU thing, dude.
Yeah.
So you get accepted.
Got accepted. Didn't think it was going to happen. Had no money. I just paid off whatever loans I had. Finally was like even. I moved out of my house. My sister moved into it. Living with my parents again. Paying rent. Working at State Farm. And I was like, Lord, if you're telling me to go to SAGU, you need to provide money. It's like, that's just it. There's no other option. I can't go. Like, if I can't get there, I can't go, obviously. And then all my first semester got paid for in cash in like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So just family, friends, scholarships, grants, all sorts of things just were like, boom, there you go. You're going. And I was like, guess I'm going to Texas. And I got there spring of 21. And remember, I came out of California, so it didn't really matter to you guys here for the most part, unless you were at the school. But like wearing masks was a thing, and I hated that, despised it, never liked it. Doesn't make any biological sense. Fight me on that. I don't care. Like, I used to eat dirt. I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like, we make the expression of licking doorknobs. No, I was that kind of kid. Like, I've got it. I'm good. I'm not worried, right?
Everything there is to get, I got it.
Yeah, I'm already there. Like, you guys don't even... And during that time, someone told me to wear a mask, dude. It was just like the look of despair and death at the same time. We were just like, don't talk to me. Leave me alone. So, get to the school. The school was like, you gotta wear a mask. And I was like, haha, I'm not doing it. I don't care. I'm a grown man. I've already achieved whatever I wanted to. I'm here to get my education because God told me to. So go to get a history degree. And I just come off of doing my ministry for esports, and I got invited to like 2 underground tournaments. And I was the number 1 player in the school for Smash, but who was actively there. And one of my athletes who's now on my team was a senior in high school. He was going to these and beating everyone. So I was number 1 technically at the university for like a year, all of like 6 months maybe. But I got invited to those things and really just kind of went through and had probably most of the experience of a college life summed up in about 4 months for that spring semester. The freeze happened. I was a whole determined adult. I was like 22 by then. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, I'm going to get all my work done. So I got all my work done for this semester in 2 days. Played volleyball and chilled out. And I remember I was like, okay, like if I'm going to be at this school, I'm going to invest myself. I very much believe that. Like if you're going to go to anywhere, invest yourself in the place that you're at. It frustrates me when people are like, I'm only here for a season. And I'm like, yeah, so use this season well. Don't sit on your hands and not do anything with it. So I was like, I'm going to play sports. Like, right. You know, like I was okay. My knee felt a little better. You know, I was feeling all right. My knee was hurt from the femur fracture.
Gotcha.
So tore my meniscus and did all sorts of stuff with it too. So I was like, I'm going to play sports. The next day, like March 15th or something, jumped up in volleyball. My kneecap was like, hey, we're going to just slide out of position. And my bone was just like, hit. and I couldn't even go up the stairs.
Oh.
And I was like, all right, I'm done with having a knee problem. But I really think God was just telling me, he's like, you're done with running away from what I'm telling you to do. like we were talking about Jacob today, wrestling with God, right?
Yeah.
Walked away with a new name, walked away with a limp, walked away with the same anointing of God's sweat on him from wrestling so long. Like, could be a crazy thing. I'm sorry if I stole your thunder. I apologize.
Okay.
But like all these things that he walked away from, he walked away a better man. He walked away without the ability to go run away from his problems for 7 years and then 7 years again.
Yeah,
for Leia and
such
Rachel.
a good story, dude.
Massive story, right? And then he comes back and he's able to reconcile everything that he's had. So my knee gets messed up, and I was like, well, I can't play sports now. I can't do anything athletic. God, what does he want me to do? And like maybe a few days later, they were like, hey, we're launching an esports team. Send information if you're interested. And they'd already hired a head coach at the time. So I was just like, hey, I used to do this ministry for 3 years. Here's my stat sheets for every match that 36 people have done for 3 years. I was like, just let me know if you need help. Let me know if you want to do something. And he was like, you could be the assistant coach.
Here's my stat sheets for the last 3 years. It's such a flex.
Dude, it was just something I like to do.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'd like to
Casually.
know. Yeah.
My mom's an accountant. This is my accountant version of my semester.
So I never had like a business math class. Never had anything. Never had any training with Excel. I kind of was just like, I like numbers. This looks like I can make fun squares. Let's see how they look. So I don't know. That's kind of just like an innate thing. I like stats on that level. So he was like, you can be the assistant coach. And I was like, sweet. Okay. No big deal. And we had met during this time already. We'd gone to Top Golf like twice. And I think by this time we had done our camping trip too. So if you want to pick up anything during that time.
I just remember we went on this camping trip and it was me and Kyle. It was such a random time of my SAGU career, dude. Yes,
I love him.
He's such a goofy dude. He lives in the moment, like great athlete because of that.
Yep.
Just awesome. Just a down to earth dude. He reminds me of
Chicken Joe
and Surf's Up.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, he is that character.
Gosh.
He is that character.
You're telling her.
Decepticon. Get out of here.
So we go on this camping trip, and Zack is like, you are like very
Type A.
Yeah.
Dad.
You're very dad. You're very type A.
And gray hair.
Yeah, you literally have gray hair. And so
So much.
so we go on this camping trip, and I had some camping stuff there at SAGU. And so I don't think you had much camping stuff just because you weren't planning.
It was the first thing. I brought bare bones. I didn't have anything.
Yeah, exactly. It was your first trip from California. And so I think I forgot the poles to the tent.
Yes. So you forgot
gosh.
poles to the tent. Kyle didn't bring anything.
Nothing.
I had a sleeping bag and a pillow.
Yes.
And I think I brought my hammock too, just in case.
You brought your hammock, and I had a hammock. So I told Kyle, I said, here, you take my hammock. Zack, you sleep in your hammock.
I just found out you're going to have to bleep out what you're about to say.
I don't think you know what I'm going to say. It's not that bad.
Continue.
Okay.
We'll go over it after.
Okay. And so I was in Boy Scouts for a long time, and so you had some rope. I think you had some rope.
I had paracord, yeah.
Yes, you had some paracord. So I made this I had my hatchet. So we made this cot out of sticks and then hung it from the tree. And that's what I slept on. So I could be above the ground.
Wow.
And it was sick. It was really cool. It worked great too. I thought I was going to fall in the middle of the night for sure. Anyway, but we had this experience where it was like probably one of the first times, I don't know about one of the first times, but you were just able to enjoy your time instead of having to like babysit everyone. And that's when we realized like, oh, we make a really good team because we're actually capable people.
Dude, with the exception of Kyle.
Yes.
But Kyle was low maintenance, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, true. And he was the one that brought us together, so we were like, you get a free pass.
Yeah, he got a ride.
Yeah, for sure. But that was some really fun quality time we spent because there was not a lot to do.
No.
Everything was closed down.
So this was in 2021.
2021. Yeah.
We had like Reese's Pieces and popcorn out of a Frisbee.
And you weren't living with Reed at that time, right?
We had gone distance ed after the fall semester. He had to move out of the dorm.
Gotcha.
But he still had that one last semester.
Yeah, okay.
So
Dang.
Yeah, it was honestly kind of a rough time for me just because I was engaged, and I didn't have like all my friends that I had built up because they were all juniors and seniors and had left. And so you were one of the really, really close friends that I could rely on that was actually mature.
Dude,
it's so hard to find that.
It's wild.
Wildly hard to find. So
it's so hard.
It's very difficult. And you have a really good sense of humor, so we're actually able to be real around each other.
Dude.
Which is again another correlation to Second Floor. So it was like I found a little piece of Second Floor with you while I was finishing out my SAGU career.
It was a good time.
It was fun.
Surprised we've never been arrested.
Me too.
That's why I threw Siri, man.
Yeah.
Couldn't have the watch here.
Do we want to talk about our trip?
I was going to ask you about that. Your recent trip, right?
Yeah. So we could talk about our trip, and then I mean, if you have any questions about like esports ministry, we can hit that after.
No, I want to
trip first.
Yes.
So can I go back a little bit further than the trip? And it's gonna make sense when we get around like the whole section of stuff. So I got hired at admissions at the school in March of 23.
At SAGU?
Yeah. So I was the head esports coach by then and the admissions counselor. I just graduated. And I was like, I'm making money doing, the thing I want to do. I wanted to provide. I was dating someone at that time. And I was like, I should be making enough. We should be able to start living out and doing these things. And I remember coming here. So actually when I first met you, Zach.
Okay.
So
for pickleball?
Yeah, for pickleball, late night pickleball, freaking champions rankings. So I came here and you had no idea what was going on in my life or my head, but Joseph did. And this was what, June now? Beginning or May or June, like right around that time. And I really was just struggling with like, I was not satisfied with what I was doing. I had no idea why. And I remember telling Joseph, I was like, I'm doing what I think I should be doing, man. I'm checking the boxes, doing the thing and just trying to figure out what, whatever. I thought this was right. I'm trying to prep for a family again. And Joseph's like, but are you doing what makes you happy? And are you doing God's will? And I was like, I have no idea. Because my admissions job was taken away from doing esports stuff. And
wait, so what made you come down for that?
I had a trip that I needed to go to San Antonio for.
Oh, so you're just kind of passing through?
Yeah, okay, Texas, Louisiana, Hispanic District. I had to rep the booth there.
Gotcha.
So I get there, rep the booth. I'm driving back, and I get to like Holbrook. Not Holbrook. That's that story. I love that city.
Crossover right there.
It's the multiverse. There's like 20 minutes outside of Waxahachie. Hatchet. I hit the steering wheel of the car at the school. I was just like, why? Why am I not happy? And God's like, you're not doing what I told you to do. And I was like, I'm sorry. It just was like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, I want you to go evangelize to the U.S. with esports. I've called you to do this. You've been in esports ministry for X amount of years now. Why are you pursuing money? And I was like, that's a lot. So I got out, decided to quit my job that next week and wrote out my 2-week notice, got out of my door on a Friday.
Which we should mention was like a significant portion of your income.
Yeah. Yeah. My income for coaching was like
minimal.
We just can't.
Really?
I'm sorry.
At
There's going to be
SAGU?
so much. Yeah. Wild,
you
right?
Paid minimally?
So when I was at
esports,
my assistant coach job was $5,000. I had rent that was $485. I had insurance that I needed to pay. I had to buy gas and food. Do the math. I was in the negative.
Yeah.
Still didn't go out negative. Don't ask me how that works. You can ask me now, but don't ask me then.
I won't ask.
Got a pay raise to $20,000. I'd increased my tithe actually with my only $5,000. I went from 10% to 15% because I was like, I'm going to trust you. It's just like, I'm going to trust God. That's a lot of the decisions I make. It's just like, I'm going to trust you, God. I feel like you're telling me to do this. So didn't have any needs or wants, but then my housing situation ended and the landlords were like, you're out, see ya. And I was like, what do you mean? And so picked up another job so I could live at Regents.
Which is the apartments on campus.
Yeah. And then I got another pay raise for esports, just a little one. And then got that. But my admissions job was twice what I was making. So it took out 2/3 of my income when I quit. But in doing that, I walked out my door with my 2-week notice and locked it, turned around, took 2 steps, and I got stung on my arm by a wasp twice. It was like here and here. And I just started screaming. It hurt. I was like, this is stupid. Why is this happening? It's a rough day. I'm about to go tell my boss, who I've worked for 3 months, that I'm quitting. Like, this is not what I needed. And killed the wasp, slapped it down, killed it. Didn't know where it came from. And I was just like, whatever. So I walk into work. My arm just hurts a little bit. But I'm looking, and I don't see any marks. No swelling. I told my boss, I was like, yeah, turned in my 2-week notice and was like, I'm going to go evangelize the US with Esports. He's like, you sure this is what you want to do? And I was like, yeah, it sounds stupid, I know, but I'm going to do it. And he was just like, okay, I'll pray for you. And I was like, thank you. Just easy, amicable split. But my arm, nothing happened to it all day. And I was like, Lord, what's up with that? And he was like, the same way I was with Paul in Acts 28, 3-5, I'm with you. And I was like, let me go look that up. Paul reaches into the fire and gets bit by the viper on the island. Yeah. And everybody's like, this guy's dead. Gone immediately, like, not going to do anything. Paul just looks at it, tosses it away. And everybody's like, he's a god. Like, that kind of, flip of switch. And so I was like, all right, this is good momentum. What's the next step? And so from then on, I've just been taking steps of like, what is this calling on my life that I need to do? Which led us to the road trip.
Yes.
That's a brief summarization.
Thank you for doing that.
Road trip. So,
which was end of November.
Amazing.
Very recent.
Amazing road trip.
So much fun. Everything you can ask for a road trip, except maybe a little less stress would be nice.
A little less money too.
A little less money would be great too. Yeah. But basically,
start them off with this.
I had a 3-day, essentially like business mastermind event from an entrepreneur that I've been listening to for 5 to 6 years. Someone who's really created and helped me develop my entrepreneurial mindset over his podcast. And he throws this event. And so I ended up getting like a scholarship to his program, asked if I could come to the event. He says yes. My fencing company sponsored our diesel for the van. Mm-hmm. We have a camper van that we rent out. And so we were able to use that to drive there. And I was like, man, my suspension is really, really loose. The van has a ton of miles on it. This needs to be replaced. And so we had it replaced at a very reputable mechanic. And I was like, before that, when I was planning the trip, I thought, man, I want to go on a road trip. This is perfect. Event, great. There's a reason to go. Awesome. Who could I invite to go with me? Because there's only one more seat in the van. And who would be able to take the time off specifically to be able to go too? And so I thought of you. I was like, I think I might be able to catch Zack at a time where it's right at the end of the semester. And so I did. Turns out I did. And so we locked in that trip and everything started out great.
Bro, this trip. Can I preface like what happened before the trip?
Yes.
I hosted a tournament for the Alzheimer's Association, and November 3rd was like the day before, and I had like 7 athletes come up to me and tell me they were going to quit. The whole team, the whole program, they were done. And I was like, no, you're going to pull your bootstraps up. You're going to do this event. And I had planned, so I had that tournament, and then I was trying to figure out a relationship, that same one that I was in, and figure out what we were going to do. So I was going to fly out of state for like a week and a half. Then I was going to come back for like 2 days and then go on the road trip with him. So I had like so much emotional toil that I was going through with like doing the event. The event went well. We raised a lot of money. Then I went out, saw a cool state, and was able to spend time with this person. And it just, we thought we were working things out. And so we were like, okay, let's see what we do. And then we hit this road trip. Joseph picked me up in the morning.
Yes. So by the time we even start the road trip, we wake up at 5 a.m. that morning. The night at I got there at like 11 after an insanely long day. Like I got off at like 8 p.m. because of just some random work stuff. Drove to Waxahachie, picked you up. It was already like 12.
Yeah.
I didn't pick you up. I got there to your apartment.
Yeah, it was like 12:20, man.
And then we were talking until like almost 2 a.m. in the morning.
So smart.
Got up at like 5:30 to start the road trip. And we started, you started driving and
2-hour shifts.
2-hour shifts. And that's how we were going to do because the road trip's almost 24 hours.
Yep.
And so the reason I also wanted you to come because you're from Barstow, which is kind of close.
Super close.
Yeah. To where the event was in California. And so we get to the first day of driving, get to a stop. And we're like, Wow,
dude,
things are going well.
Yeah, and like we drove out. I drove out of Dallas, shifted off. Joseph drove. I drove. Joseph drove, and then I was like, I think I just drive for like 5 more hours. And so our halfway point was like Albuquerque, and I was like, I think we can make it to Gallup. And I got to Gallup, and I just like I feel like I could have drove farther. And I was just like, I think we're just gonna stop. I don't know why.
Thank you for saying that.
We get to day one. End of day one.
So we go to sleep in the back of the van. We wake up in the morning. It's stupid. It's snowing. There's 2 or 3 inches of snow on the ground. We're like, all right, no big deal. We have all-terrain tires.
Easy money.
Easy money.
Light work.
Traction control. We're okay. We're not driving a sail,
Bro,
down the road.
driving was like as stable as my marriage.
So we start Zach starts driving. I'm really glad you
It's
were
like
driving.
5 in the morning.
This
too.
goes back to the point of you being capable. And I call my wife and I'm like, yeah, things are going really great. Start another day of driving. We should be there about this time. Should never have said that statement.
Should have called Taylor.
We started like...
He was like, things are going great. I was literally losing control on the road at
We
20
were
miles
like-
an hour.
20 or 30 on the highway, just like drifting because of how bad the snow was.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, let's pull off. We barely made it with our lives to pull off. Found a spot, cooked some breakfast inside the vans. It was actually kind of just a nice, peaceful moment for the second.
He sat me down. And he was like, just be still for a bit. I was like, I can't. And he was like, figure it out.
Made some breakfast, and then we were there for like 2 hours.
Yep.
Like, okay, cool, let's get back on the road. And it was a little bit better. The snow was better, but we were still just didn't feel like we had traction. And so then we finally get out of the snow. That's when I call my wife. And then another probably 10 minutes goes by, and boom, and we have to go off to the side of the road, and we blew a tire, and literally almost wreck. Almost wreck. If Zach hadn't handled it so well.
Like the past hour of driving was me like
white knuckling.
getting white knuckling, getting pushed over by diesels, not because they were pushing us over, but because of the wind from when they passed us at like 10 to 15 miles faster, made us lose control. Snow coming off, hitting the front windshield to where we couldn't see for a few seconds, hitting patches of ice that were like making us drift for a couple 100 feet.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't be alive.
Sketchy. I'm talking one wrong move, you're done. The van's like flipped over in the middle of the road. That's it.
You're sideways.
That's game. Someone slams into you. Like, that's it. And so we get off the side. I'm just thinking real quick, like, okay, we have a full-size spare. We'll change the tire. We're good. And then I look at the tire and I'm like, man, the whole outside is worn down evenly. That's crazy.
Probably had nothing to do with it.
I was like, we'll just change the tire.
That's
and I'm
weird.
like, wait, let me look at the other tire. I go look at the other tire, and I see the metal frays coming out. That's how
wire.
bare it is on the outside. So I'm like, okay, well, this blows. But thankfully I have a AAA membership. Let me get a free tow.
Yeah.
What's the closest town? And that's when you said Holbrook.
Holbrook, man. That town is straight out of hell.
And so the tow truck gets there in like another hour.
Hour and a half.
It was long.
It was a long time.
We were just sitting there and just like,
cold wind.
keep in mind, my event starts the next morning.
Yeah.
We were
9 a.m. the next morning.
we were supposed to be in Barstow by 5 p.m. That's what I mapped out. I was like, we can make it by 5. At this point,
It was like 10 in the morning.
yeah.
So we still have another 7 hours to go.
Perfect.
Sick, right? As Jocko would say, good.
Good.
So we get the tow. I'm just like sitting there in the back of this half cab tow truck. My knees are jammed into my chest. And I'm just like looking out, watching the desert go by,
Dude, it was
contemplating my life. Zach's like ministering to the tow truck driver. And we're just like, it's another 40-minute drive to Holbrook, right? So we get there, takes us to the tire shop. Nice guy comes out. It's like, hey, how can I help? And show him the situation. He's like, awesome, come inside. I go inside and he's like, yeah, so first of all, we don't have your exact tires, but we have your tire size. So we actually can get you tires on, but it's going to be probably like 4 or 5 hours until we can get you in the shop. And I was like, that sucks, but okay, I guess we have to deal with it. So we walk out. He's like, there's a couple places around. Keep in mind, every other restaurant you see is like completely boarded up, spray paint. It's one of those towns.
No, like I came from Barstow. And when you go through it, there's parts where you're like, this makes sense. Like in Fast and Furious 2, and he's like, I ain't going back to Barstow. He was saying it for a reason. Like there's, it's rough. Holbrook was like zombie
level.
apocalypse.
Dude, another level.
No, I thought we were some walkers out there, man. It's like we're gonna go to town.
So we go to this Italian restaurant and get spaghetti at like 11 in the morning.
Wow.
And just contemplating our life, like I'm just trying to keep it all together, frankly, because
he's so close.
He told me it was like, this is going to be probably $400 we're going to look at because I thought it was the alignment.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to look at the alignment, whatever, get your new tires on. And I was like, okay, that sucks. And I'm so low on sleep right now. It's not even funny. I'm like at my energy level 0.
Yeah.
I'm on 1 HP right now. And physically, okay, because there's sometimes, so physically I'm drained. Emotionally, I've just been drained. Mentally, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get to this event the next morning. I'm quickly draining. Spiritually, I'm like, God, where are you? Right? And so he calls me and he's like, so good news, bad news. We have your tires, but my tech looked at your alignment and says that it's off. I was like, no, duh. And he was like, we need a special tool from Mercedes that costs $1,500 that we don't have. Meaning that even if we put new tires on, your alignment's
same thing's
not
going to happen,
fixed.
yeah.
So I call the next dealership, closest dealership, which is in Flagstaff. And they're like, he's like, I tell him the situation, and the dude is awesome. He's like, we can actually get you in at like 4 today, right before we close, but we can't get you in tomorrow.
Time was 2:30. Takes an hour and 15 minutes to get to Flagstaff.
Takes an hour, yeah. So I call the guy back, and he's like, at the tire shop, and he laughs at me, and he's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So then we walk to an Assemblies of God church because we're in that much despair. There's an Assemblies of God church around the corner. Like maybe they'll help us. We literally walked it, but no one was there. And I thought we were gonna get jumped on the way there or back. We didn't, thank goodness.
I'm honest, like I was like walking through rainbows and daisies. I was like, this is nothing compared to my divorce. Joseph's like going downhill, and I'm just like, man, this is a normal day. We're doing great.
And so we just come to the conclusion that we're going to have to literally go back and beg on our hands and knees for just to let him, I don't know, let us help him get the tires off. So that's what we did. We went back and I said, feel free to say no to this, but I'm talking to the tire guy. I'm like, if we don't get this done right now, I'm going to miss my whole event tomorrow. Trip's gone. I was like, I will pay you full price if you let me and my friend I have my tools. We will take the tires off. If you will just switch them out and we will put them back on, I'll pay full price.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah.
And then there was a girl who was the other receptionist over there, and she was like, oh, I'll do it. And apparently she had been out with like an injury, and she went out there and asked, and they were like, yeah, you can do it. So she jumps out there. I'm not kidding you. Sub 10 minutes, has both our tires off. We're like, can we help you? She's like, I got it. Goes in there, swaps both tires out, puts them both back on. She's like, yeah, you're good to go.
During all of Joseph's despair, I prayed over everything multiple times. And there was a point where we were at this coffee shop because we went from the Italian food place to the AG church, which was close to this coffee shop. We're sitting there, and I see him staring out the window, and I was like, he's going to lose it. He was like,
I was close.
He was close enough to where, like, if someone with blue hair walked in, they were getting baited. Just like, if they said one wrong thing.
If I had an out, I would have taken it.
Yeah, he was there. And so I remember I was sitting there, and I was like, hey, come here. And he was just like pissed, like, not wanting to talk.
What?
Come over, sat down. I was like, you're going to sit here. We're going to pray for it, and we're going back. And we prayed. I mean, fact of the matter is, we went and asked, sure, but we went with blessing and provision because we went to Christ together.
Good point.
There's no other way.
Yes.
That was the only reason my hand was out right here, because I was like, yes, we did do this, but
yes,
it was not by arm strength at all.
100%.
There's no way.
100%. Yes, and that was the point where I realized, I was like, that's why I wanted Zach on this trip with me, because if I was with honestly anyone else, I don't think I could have done that by myself.
No.
Like, you shared that weight in me with me, and that was huge for us getting through that point. And so we get back on the road, we're feeling like a glimmer of hope, because we know that, you know, our van's not fixed yet, but we have at least a chance. We have a fighting chance. So we get to Flagstaff, we get to the dealership, we talk to the guy, and he's like,
Wait. So you still, how far away was?
it's like over an hour.
So you still drove
Hour and 15 minutes.
over an hour with the bad
alignment.
I drove
brand new tires.
I drove that whole day until we got like right past Flagstaff. It was just white knuckling the whole thing.
You shut the cameras off?
Said battery exhausted and then went off.
Battery
No.
exhausted.
Did it
feel
overheat?
hot.
It doesn't feel hot? Can you try turning it off and back on?
That's what I did. And it immediately said the same thing and turned back on.
Isn't it plugged in?
Yeah. It's plugged in.
So making sure everything's plugged in.
Perfect.
Yo, you want to just pause for take an
Yeah,
intermission?
we can pause. I mean, we can cut.
take an intermission.
Yeah. The heck?
Oh, spinach puffs.
And we're back.
So we're back in Holbrook, place I've never wanted to be.
Okay. So we were walking back to the tire shop, and I looked this guy dead in the face, and I'm like, feel free to say no, but if we don't get these tires changed in the next 30 minutes, this whole trip is done.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, dang, this is serious. I was like, I will pay full price, and my friend Zack and I we have the tools, we'll take the tires off. If you'll just switch them, we'll put it back on.
Yep.
And there was a girl to the left, and she was like, oh, I can do it. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, I just hurt my arm, but I can probably get back at it.
Wait. Are you saying that you're a misogynist and you thought that a woman couldn't change the tires in your van?
That's not what I thought at all, but she had not gone back there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, maybe she's just working up front. And so she turned out to be a freaking G, because she went out there and flipped those tires in like less than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we were out there like, hey, do you think we can help you? She's like, "Zzz, I got it. It's okay. We're like, okay, back off. And so she had those flipped, and we got back on the road, and we started heading back to Flagstaff.
Yeah.
But before that,
Dude, we saturated that in prayer. I remember you looking at the window. You were like the kid who was just like super depressed, who was just like hand on the window. Yeah,
friend.
right. You were like, someone save me. And I was like, well, Jesus saved, so we're gonna pray. So I remember calling you over, and I was like, hey, come here. And you were just like you were pissed, sad, upset, every emotion that was just below the spectrum. And I was like, we're gonna pray about it. We're gonna ask him, because you had this, like, it was rough. I remember you talking about like, we're probably just going to rent a motel. And I was like, why are we renting a motel? We have a van we can sleep in. Like it was just like a little bit of irrational thought. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, I was like, I would rather just sleep on the floor than go in a hotel. Like, we're not doing that. This place looks like it's dead anyways. Mm-hmm. So why do that? But I remember I was just like, we need to pray for sure. And absolutely soak it, saturate it, and go with boldness into that. And so then we went, asked the guys, and the
yes,
lady who took care of it.
And it was that moment that I realized, oh, this is why Zach's on the trip with me. Because if it was anyone else, I don't think that I would have had someone strong enough to help me through that, and just to literally, spiritually, but also at times almost have to physically carry me. Like, come on, get up. Like, let's keep going. And so we get back, and that whole thing happens, and we're back on the road all of a sudden. So we have this glimmer of hope, like, we might be able to still get to Barstow tonight if we can get to the dealership on time.
There were so many things that had to happen for us to get to town before midnight.
What are the odds that when does a dealership ever get you in next or the day of? Never.
Yeah, that's actually insane.
Never.
That's insane.
So the fact that they had that window of time right before they closed was huge. So we get there, meet the guy. He's a young guy, really.
Yeah.
Probably similar age to us. He was like, "Hey guys, no promises. If this is bigger than we expect it to be, we might have to be here till tomorrow. I'm not sure." And we were just like, okay, did not think that was going to happen. And so he took the van back, and we're just sitting in the lobby, the waiting area, eating some snacks. I was talking to my wife on the phone, and just like, here's what just happened since I last talked to you. lots has happened. And we're just kind of sitting there reeling, or just kind of processing what just happened. And it's like when someone's lost at sea and then they get back on like the ship, right? But they're not home yet. They're like back on the ship. They have a blanket around them. They're like shivering. They're getting like some food. That's how I felt.
It's me at my job every day.
And so, I mean, it was probably like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe 20, maybe.
Yeah.
He comes back out and he's like, yep, fixed. It's just he said, the measurement by which we see how off your alignment was, our instrument could not even read how off it was.
So funny.
And I was like, what? And so it just turns out you needed that certain tool from Mercedes to do that. And so he was like, yep, here you go. Check out. Boom. We're on the road in like sub 30 minutes, which is insane. Insane, especially for a dealership. I've always heard dealerships take forever. And so we get back on the road.
Yeah. So I think at this point, I'd had like 6 cups of coffee.
You were going.
I had
You
it
were
all
going.
because we woke up early and I went and got Joseph coffee. And I was like, we're gonna get coffee, we're gonna get on the road. Well, that didn't really happen. We almost died a few times. Then we get to Holbrook and I was like, let's go to this cafe. And I'm like, can I get an Americano with like 3 extra shots? Like I was ready.
You were humming.
Because we sat there and saw that the situation was rough. And I was like, we're gonna get home today. I don't care what's gonna happen. I don't care what I have to do. I can push the van. Like my mindset and determination for that day, I don't know if I've ever had an unbending resolve in such a way where I was like, we're getting home. There is no option. There is no failure. There's no giving up. There's no quitting. We're getting home. And so like everything that had to line up the way that it did was definitely just God working. And it was like
100%.
I was like, Lord, I'm trusting you to get us home. And he was like, okay, coming through. Went through on the tire shop, went through at Mercedes. I had another cup of coffee there and some pretzels. And I was like, I'm ready.
To rock.
And we get in the car and I was like, all right, Joseph, we're going to go to Williams. When he gets to Williams, I need to sleep for like an hour and a half. And I was like, you're going to get to this gas station. And once we get there, it's the middle of nowhere in the desert at night. It's going to suck. You're probably going to fall asleep. And I was like, so I've got it. And
that was huge to have you on the trip in the sense of you knew that drive.
Dude, that drive is not fun for most people. It's like...
It wasn't fun for me either. I don't know what you say to most people. It sucked.
That part from... why can't I think
Williams?
of it? Havasu. Oh. So William to Havasu is what you did. Havasu to Barstow is like 3 hours of like, you cross into California and there are no towns. You hit Needles and then there's nothing until you get to like Baker or a spot like that. But even then, that's not even a town. That's a gas station with the Dairy Queen that you might get poisoned at. So you just keep going, right? And so you go for like 2.5 hours with nothing. No lights, no, like you may even see a train. You might see a few cars. There's no civilization. So that part of like getting through the drive, I'm like, I can mentally take this. Because even doing it, like going to the river growing up, it was sucky. It's like, why are we in this spot? How did we get here?
Yeah.
And then you get to your destination, you're like, okay, yeah, it's great. But yeah, I was thinking about it and I was like, I will get through this part for us.
So by the time we left Flagstaff, we still had what, like 6 hours left?
Flagstaff is 6 hours. So Flagstaff to Williams is it wasn't long. Williams to Havasu was 2. And then Havasu to Barstow was 3.
So about 6 hours total to Barstow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's insane.
We made it above that time, by the way.
Of course we did. And so we finally make it to Barstow. It's like midnight.
It was 10:05.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a goal.
It felt like midnight.
The latest in my mind I wanted us to be there was 10. So I definitely rode us a little hard.
Yeah, so we made it there. It was the best feeling in the world to sleep in a home that night. I felt so taken care of. It was amazing. And I had to get up at like 5 a.m. the next morning to drive 2 hours through traffic to get to Irvine just to get to the morning of my event. Just to start my 3-day event. So anyway, the event was great. It was awesome. That's a whole other story, but for another time. And then you made another thank you that you made this decision because we were going to go golfing or we were going to do something really active after I got back for a day. And you were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So we just got to chill and it was so nice and restorative and fun. And then the next day, we started the drive back.
Yeah. That was the time when the memes were like, man, it'd be crazy if we leave this party, right? Right? It was those kinds of ones.
Those.
So I sat there and I was driving and we're just getting out, like sun's coming up. I looked at Joseph and I was like, it'd be kind of crazy if we made it in one day, right? And he goes, yeah, I think that'd be such a cool story. And I was like, oh, we're doing this. Like there's no more 2 days. Like we are one tripping this.
Yeah. But before that happened, the van broke down again. You remember?
Oh
that?
We're coming out of Williams again.
Yes. So I had put some fuel additive in to help the engine, but I was in such a state that I forgot that fuel additive was like a year old. So it like gummed up our engine to the point of we tried to go up a hill and the van was like,
just stopped.
And we just pulled over on the shoulder and I was like,
I looked at him, dude. He was gone. He was done again immediately from here to here.
I was having like that 1,000-yard stare of the Vietnam flashback. So we just went through. I was like, God, why me?
He was having PTDS.
I was like, can I sell this fan right now? Anyway, we like opened the hood, couldn't find anything that was sticking out. We're like, well, let's just turn it back on. Try it again. We turned it back on and started driving, slowly put our hazards on, and it would just barely crawl up the hill at like 40. And we were on the highway. And then slowly but surely that additive got burned off, and then it was back to normal in a few hours.
Just from driving it?
Just from driving it.
Wow.
Yeah, because,
That's crazy.
And
Prayer too.
And then we had, that conversation. And so then you kind of, it was so crazy how that happened, but by the time we were driving back, I had finally recharged my battery from that rest day. And so it got to a point, I don't even remember where we were.
I got to Quanah.
It was like 2 a.m.
Quanah, Texas. It's 2 a.m.
It was 2 a.m. We were like, this is the point of decision. Do we stop here or do we keep going?
He was laying down in the back, and I pulled into the gas station, and I was like, this is as far as I can get us. I have nothing left. Like I used all the driving day 1 and day 2, and then today. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I just need to lay down. I was like, you make the decision, do what you want. I went in the back, wrapped myself up with a stinking ratchet strap that we use that's not big enough to hold me. It just wasn't going to work. I have it wrapped around my leg like twice, and I was like, if I die, I die. Like, I've lived my life. This is not like...
Because if I had hit the brakes hard, you would fly off the bike.
Yeah.
So it was just...
Yeah. So when Zach was like, I'm going back. If you want to make it happen, make it happen. All I heard was a Celsius tab open. And
I woke up 4 hours later. We were in Chick-fil-A, walks at me.
He woke up and he was like, where are we? No, you didn't. How long have I been asleep? Why are we home right now?
I was like, why didn't you tag me in? He's like, I got it, man. It's just, I was like,
you want to
get another animal.
You want to get some breakfast? And the craziest part is that was the Chick-fil-A that we got breakfast on at the very start in the morning.
Really?
Yeah. So we made it back in the morning because we drove through the night.
Wow.
Straight 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that was super fun. We got our whole mantra throughout that entire trip when things got worse was,
lore.
This is just dad lore.
Dad lore.
This is just dad lore.
Yep. We memed our way through so many things.
We did, dude. Oh my god!
Dude, I remember seeing your story. I was laughing so hard because
the way I posted it was like really.
Oh, it was
different because I was on the beach and I posted like the last 24 hours.
Yeah,
or something like that.
But it was just hilarious to me because I remember before you went on this trip, how you were telling me that like you met with your coach, and you were talking about how like you really would just want this trip, like you don't want anything to go wrong, you just want like. It just to be like this like amazing experience. And then I see your story and I was like, yep.
I'm about right.
There it is.
And she was like, this is an opportunity to see if you're worthy enough. And I was like, well, I'm worthy. I'm worthy. I made it. We made it. So that's a very quintessential story for our friendship.
Yes.
Like if you don't understand that story, you won't understand our friendship.
And there was so much that happened, not just the events that happened, but the conversations that happened.
True.
We didn't just sit and mess around the whole time. We didn't just listen to music, and he didn't just listen to podcasts that I don't like.
You didn't just listen to early 2000s Christian music all the time.
I turned on ZBB for a little bit. It was there. It made its appearance. But we had talked about the second floor experience, and I had talked about my ministry. Something that I feel like God had called me to do. And we both kind of just sat there and he was like, Zach, you've been telling me about this for a few years. When are you going to take this step? I was like, so you're that kind of guy. You're the one that can call me out on something. I'm very much so rather appreciate someone that can challenge me in that way, rather than everyone seeing whatever I've done and been like, yeah, you're good. Because it goes back to the same point of my divorce where it's like, I need help. And they're like, you're doing all right. You're doing good. And it's like, shut up. That's stupid. Like, if I'm telling you something, you need to challenge me. I need to have someone who's willing to ask those questions. And you were that. And you were like, you've started doing some stuff, but why isn't it done? And what's in your way? And I was like, I don't know. And it really got me thinking for a lot of things. And you told me about the second floor experience. And I remember I was like, yeah, Joseph, I mean, it sounds like a good idea. I don't know if it's really for me though. And you were like, yeah, it's not really for you. And I was like, okay, well then it makes sense. Like if it's not for me. And ever since it's happened, like I've listened to every episode and I'm like, this is so interesting. And I never thought this would be me wanting to do that or wanting to be on here or any of that. I remember you guys doing it and I was like, like first 5 seconds, first 5 minutes of it, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Just try to support Joseph. And then I was like, every time I was like, I am ready. Like, let me listen to that. I'm looking forward to it. And on Monday, yeah. Like I saw that it dropped today. I think within like 5 minutes, I listened to it. I was like, I'll save it for the drive to Round Rock. No, I couldn't. I couldn't hold back from listening to it. And it was wonderful.
Heck yeah, dude.
That's so cool to hear.
So, I mean, I love the fact that I think I've told you this before. Both of our futures, like we were already going in good directions, but it just boosted it. For sure, in both of our directions. So,
dude, 100%, yeah. And like I got some like professional coaching the past 3 months that just ended, and that's what you were referencing. But also, what she was mentioning was having people, what she called partners in believing in your life, where you can share with them a pretty intimate dream that most people would be like, that can't happen, or that's not possible, which is not what you said. You said, it's not for me. And that's a really key difference, because a lot of people will hear what we're trying to do and be like, you can't run a coffee shop that way. That's not the logical way to do things. Like, everyone has a podcast right now. What makes you so special or so different? It's like, we're not really that special. First of all, it's God. The whole point of this is to point back to God. And you are, we have a call every week to go over what's been going on in our lives, specifically over both of our missions and our purposes. And you reinforce in me when I'm down, and I reinforce in you so we feed off each other. And my coach was talking about how powerful that is to have someone in your life. And of course, like, I'm just generalizing the spiritual side because we sort of already there, but for anyone listening, there's a huge spiritual side as well. I'm sure you're always really good at tagging on that.
Yeah, there's so many different things that come with that. The brotherhood that you and I share. It's something that I've been listening to podcasts about a lot. I hate saying it.
Hey, you sound like a tool. We feel like a tool. It is a tool.
I thought I say out of pocket.
It's a great tool.
You call me a tool?
It
is a tool.
Leverage these things, these stories.
It is a tool,
and
a lot of
sounds cliche.
a lot of the information that I listen to is like, okay, I really need to filter it and sort through it, see what is accurate, because I don't try to listen to secular ones. It's all mostly biblical or has a Christian foundation. So it's like, what's accurate, what really is not right, and go through it. But that brotherhood key has been big, and I remember this January. So I told you guys about a relationship earlier. You and I had talked about my mission and what needed to happen. And I remember you were just going after this full send. Like you were like, I can't get this dream out of my head. And I was like, well, I can't get mine out of my head either. And I had to decide, like, am I going to full send into a mission? And I mean, this is kind of just my life story all the time. Am I going to really trust God, or am I going to just walk in not his perfect will, his permissive will? And so I had this relationship and I was like, this is where I need to go. And I just kind of made the decision. And he texted me like the day after. He was like, hey, I want to talk to you. I was like emotionally drained. I cried all night. Like it was a rough night. And he's like, yeah, I want to have these calls with you weekly and just talk and just about these things. And I didn't text him back for like a week because I was just like, I need some space to not talk to anyone else, because I had to end the relationship. And then he was like, I sat there and I was like, actually, you're the perfect person I need to talk to about these things.
Mm.
And so having that brotherhood, that led not only to one with you, but now I have like 2 other ones that are set aside for specific purposes
Oh.
like that. And so it's been wonderful, at least for me, because I'll go and have the opportunity to talk and not even mentor or coach anyone, because that's my occupation, is to pour out all of my knowledge, all of my wisdom, everything that I can to any of my athletes. And so having someone that I can be on the same level with, same playing field, where it's like, you can pour into me and I can pour into you. And sometimes we don't even have to pour into each other. We can just be there, is huge, because now we have theological conversations that come up where it's like, I actually would have never asked this question and I never would have thought about it. Or analogies that come up where it's like,
Yeah.
dude, I never thought about it this way. Like the Holy Spirit just revealed it to me. I have those special moments with these guys now and you, where it's like, this is beautiful, what's happening out of it. And it's because iron is sharpening iron.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. That's a huge component of Second Floor.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Huge. Where
For
we did a lot of those late night conversations and everything in between.
Yeah.
Was those times to not even for us, it's we know what we want to do now and we're helping each other go for it.
Yep.
Then up until very recently, even especially but starting out in college with Second Floor, it was what do I even want to do, dude? That's people don't talk about that. That is a whole battle in itself, a whole journey in itself, just to get to figure out what do I like? What am I made for, and what does God want me to do? It's those two things together.
Yep. The most important question I think we can ask ourselves, and any philosopher will have that question. But to me, it's what is the purpose and God's will for my life? That is the only thing I've been seeking for the past, how old am I? 25? For like the past 4 years has been that question. And it's taken me through so many long roads, so many steps of faith where it's like there's no ground beneath where I'm putting my foot until God lays the brick as soon as I step. Like, what is God's will for my life? To trust Him and take action with what you've been given. That's probably the way that I can explain it. Because I think God will make us rest. He'll make us sit still. But if we really want to like follow God's will for His life, we need to be active. If the Word of God is living and active, why aren't Christians?
So what do you guys think is the key to figuring out what it is that you want to do?
I mean, I had the idea when I was in 5th grade, though it's very difficult to get it done now. But the key to seeking out what God wants you to do for the thing that you're created for, what I've been telling my guys recently has been, what is the thing that you can't get out of your head? What is that one thing that you can't go to sleep at night without thinking about? I've been thinking about doing esports ministry for over 10 years. I've been doing it for 6. I can't think of doing anything else. Like if you're going to be a pastor of a church, I don't think that you should just go be a vocational pastor unless like you can't go to sleep without thinking about the lost or the hurting or the broken. Like this is the one thing you're developing everything for, right? So I think you have to try. You have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to learn. Those principles will help you figure that out. I mean, for me, it's pretty direct. I've had God speak to me to go evangelize the U.S. with esports. I've had people prophesy over me that I was going to be a trailblazer, that what I was using to cut down what was in my way was just my willingness to obey Him. Like being obedient and listening to God's voice is huge. And listening to God's voice, like you can read the Bible and that is it. That's all you need. For some people it is. Some people are more attuned to the Spirit in the way that they can hear. They can see what's going on in this world that's not just in the flesh and see what's happening. They can just know in their heart. Like for me, a lot of my obedience with listening to the Spirit is having to seek His will and be in the Word and pray every day, but also listen. And it's happened every single weird place. I've had God tell me to get rid of all my Legos out of nowhere. I remember I started a prayer and I was like, I need to have a grateful prayer. I was like, Lord, whatever, if I had nothing in this world, I would be content because I have you. And he was like, cool, get rid of your Legos. I was planning to like pray for like 5 minutes. That was it. It was like 10 seconds. And he's like, do it. And I was like, okay, you appreciate obedience more than sacrifice. I'm going to do it. Packed them all up in 2 boxes, sent them home to my nephew. And I was like, here you go.
Which the amount of Legos you have is probably several $1,000s worth of Legos.
Yeah. The amount I had at that time was just a couple hundred.
Okay.
But I mean, like doing that was getting rid of all of them. That was like detaching my heart from that. I had another one where, and theologians will argue with this, I was on a golf course and I was on a par 5 and we're hitting into the wind. And I was like, okay, driver, big stick, get as far as we can for my team. And the Holy Spirit was like, use your 3-wood. And I was like, wait a second, is this me? Like, how do I know it's me, right? But I just was like, Lord, if this is you, I'm just going to trust you with this shot. Was not hitting good at all that day. Perfectly straight. I actually outdrove everyone in the group. And I was like, all right, I think there's some thing about just paying attention to what the Spirit's saying. There was other times where I've had like $84 in my bank account and the pastor was like, hey, tithe your day's wages. And I was just like, well, Lord, day's wage is like $79. So that leaves me with 5. What are we going to do? And I was like, do you want me to tithe it? And he's like, yeah, give it. You're good. And I was like, all right, trust you. And I've had to build up the obedience of listening to the Spirit, not just by seeing God following through. I don't think it's just a give and take, but it's God has given his life for me. Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins. If he asks anything for me, I will give it. I'm a servant of the kingdom of heaven. And if I'm a servant of the kingdom of heaven, nothing that is in my possession is mine to keep. My hands are held open to receive and for God to take out of. This also means that, hey, Zach, if you want to have, not you, sorry, talking to me. I have to tell myself this every day. If you want to have a family, if you want to have a wife and kids, you have to be obedient to Christ first. And if you're not supposed to be seeking that out and you're going to do it anyways, you're being disobedient to the calling that God's given you. I've had him tell me, he told me very specifically, he was like, build my house for my bride and I'll worry about your house and your bride. It's been a massive anchor for me.
Yeah.
Holds me down for sure, because I'm very much so just like,
you're going to go out and get what you want.
I want to go get what I want because I know I can do it. I know I'm capable. It's prideful. And so whenever I'm like, Lord, why do I not have another girlfriend? Why don't I not have a wife? Why don't I have a family? I'm 25 years old, blah, 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 blah. I can go on and complain, or I can crucify my flesh, pick up my cross, and go do the thing that God's called me to do, whether or not it's what I want to do in my flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it this way. I've talked to you about this. This is a thought we've been experimenting with. It's kind of crazy. Just broke my elbow.
I heard that.
I don't care that you broke your elbow.
When Jesus died on the cross, as fully God, he had every right to pull himself off, to call down angels and end the world. Right? Not a sin. As fully man, would he have been disobeying God by coming off the cross from the assignment he was given?
It's a good question.
I think it's a great question.
Because, I mean, the question that follows is, could Jesus, as fully God, disobey God?
Right?
Yeah.
So, being fully God and fully man, he was still obedient to the will of the Father.
Right.
Therefore, we should be as well. And so, if my flesh, like Jesus bore the weight of every temptation, everything that every man could have done, especially if that's the case, he could have pulled himself off. Imagine the temptation of knowing you didn't have to die, or you weren't going to do it because you couldn't. You were like, I really don't have to be here. Right?
Right.
Not just that. Like, we go through temptation and it's like, there's a way out. Not by our own strength. He had the way out by his own strength. And he was like, no, denied himself, died on the cross for our sins. That way we can spend eternity with him in heaven. If I don't live my life in that accord, if I don't want to do a thing that Jesus did, if I really don't want to crucify everything that I have for myself, I'm not a representation of Christ. In fact, I'm a representation of this world. Here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't think about. I've had to come to realize it. When I die, when I go to heaven, my eternity is to be there with Christ. So if I live my life on this earth trying to pursue a family instead of pursuing Christ, My family is not going to be my family when I'm in heaven. They're not going to be the ones I'm looking forward to being with. I'm looking forward to spending eternity with Jesus. If I can lead people and have a family and bring them along the way, excellent job, well done, you've done your part. But if that's not in my possession to do, if that's not what God has set me out to do, to go be the family man, I need to sacrifice being the family man for following God's will. Ultimately, I am a servant. Whatever I've been given, I've been given. If I ask for it, I'm asking the one who's able to give and who knows whether it should be done or not. I need to be content with the answer. Do I need to continue asking? Yeah, I think so. But do I need to be pursuing it out of my own will rather than God's? No. Because ultimately, I'm stepping down from the cross. And I'm saying I can live the way the rest of the world does. It doesn't seem that way, may not feel that way to some people, but to me, that's how it has to be. And so if and when it comes, that great blessing of having a family, leaving a legacy, teaching people and having children to raise up in your word and name and teaching them so many things, like I want to do that. I do. But if that's not where I'm set, okay, I need to lay that down and move on.
Cool. So how I found my purpose. Just kidding. You do such a good job of really breaking down the spiritual side of it, for sure. And I echo 100% what you're saying. I think I could add only what I've found from, I guess, I don't know, the philosopher side of me, in some senses. In my experience, it's been, I would get impatient with people because I wanted something more tangible. I'm like, yes, I know I'm doing God's will. I know I'm in a relationship with him. And then, like, what else?
Yep.
What else? And so my experience was I tried a bunch of random stuff. I did sports, all sorts of activities, Boy Scouts, anything under the sun. I probably tried it for one time or another. And I was also always observing other people, listening. What were they talking about? Do I enjoy this? Do I not enjoy this? And a lot of it at the very beginning for me throughout high school and college and in the working world, at the very beginning in high school, it was more of like, what does my community and my family want me to do? And that was, they would see becoming a pastor as a good thing.
Dude.
So that's initially was like, okay, like it seems like I'm going that route. Everyone was like, oh, cool, so you're going to be a pastor.
Yep.
And it was like, I mean, if God wants me to. That was always my answer. And so as I went, even in my first year at SAGU, I talked to a lot of professors about the same question. I really like to do this, but I also want to travel. And, I also have this interest in photography. I also have this interest in here. And the professor was just like, gosh, I don't know how to help this freaking kid. I don't know, like follow God, I guess. No, but they did their best for sure. I think I just didn't ask the right person for that, the right kind of advice I was needing. And throughout college, I added more, I think of them as puzzle pieces. I added more puzzle pieces to the board. And there was still some missing, at least for what I felt like my overall purpose was. Maybe later in life it'll take different forms, but I just didn't even have the first form yet.
Yep.
And so I knew I had pieces of it. For example, like on second floor, I knew I loved this type of community.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily know how to describe it. I didn't have the words for it, but I knew that being around you guys in that true discipleship form, I felt the most alive. And so that was a puzzle piece. I knew I loved something like a camper van where I could go out and take trips like this one we took, to go see interesting places, to take on challenges, to have a mission. The whole point I even went was to grow as an entrepreneur. And so I was like, okay, there's another piece. I grew up in Boy Scouts, love the outdoors. Awesome. Camping with you. You just take all these pieces of, these are things that throughout my life have not changed, that I truly enjoy on a deep level. And to me, there's a big caveat here in my life, having faith. If you don't have faith and you're listening, you may not agree with this, but for me, it was always run through the filter of, am I being obedient to God? If I'm not being obedient to God and what I feel like inside of his will, which is his plan for my life, then none of these things after what Zac was saying matter. So first I was like, I have to get my life right. And when I felt like my life was right with Christ in the sense of I was pursuing him in relationship, I could then go to these more practical things of what do I like, because I could see that as if I'm created by the creator, he's put these desires in me that are different than other people. Just like for you, it's esports. For me, it's community. For Zach, like you love a bunch of other stuff. Benji, you love a bunch of other stuff. Like motocross, you guys share motocross together. We all have these different things that we love. And so I looked to those as a bit of like an investigation almost of what could I do that would put all these pieces in place one together. And for me, I couldn't just point at like engineering and be like, oh, this would fulfill me every day of my life. Getting up and getting to do this would be awesome. Some people, it is. For me, it's not esports. I can't get up every day and be like, I want to coach these people, I want to do these things. Like, that's not what I enjoy.
Don't do it.
And the big difference here is I'm not saying don't do what you have to do in the moment, right? I'm not saying use your purpose as an excuse to not do what's right in front of you.
Yep.
That's the big caveat, right? And so to wrap this all up, it's only been the last few months talking with you, all of our conversations that have led to, wow, this second floor thing fits all of these pieces that God has created in me. Some that don't even make sense. Like, I love the coaching aspect like you do, but I was like, I don't just want to be a coach, right? And so now if I can lead a team, now I can fill that role, etc. That's just one example. But that has taken me literally 23 years to figure out. And that's the first time in my life it's actually come together in the way that it has. The other times it's only been fulfilling pieces. This is the first time it's felt like I have a complete picture. The first form that I can look at and say, I would wake up out of bed every day. I would not go to sleep to do this because it's so much fun. And I love it so much. I feel like I'm impacting, etc. So that's I guess the practical side of how I felt.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm very like bubble philosophical, connect the dots.
No, it's great.
When I explain that.
Well, I feel like sometimes the issue, especially within Christianity or like maybe any faith, I don't know, but there's this tension between, I think we all agree that like there are times where as a believer, there are times where God calls you to do things that you might not want to do.
Yep.
Right? I feel like we would all agree with that, right?
Going to school.
Yes.
Doing a fencing business.
Okay, right. Working at Applied Materials. That's where I work. So I feel like the struggle, especially this has been a big struggle in my life, but it's like finding that line between, okay, Lord, I guess, how do I find a thing that I want to do? And then like these things that I don't want to do that I feel like you're leading me into, like, where do you find that line?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
For me, I for sure wrestle with that like all the time.
Yeah.
And the only thing I found to be true was like a pendulum. It was, I tried to swing to one side and I was sensitive to the Holy Spirit and it was like, nope, go back. So I'd go back to the middle for a while and then I'd get antsy. I'd go to the other side, try it for a while, and then I'd get a gentle, no, go back to what you're doing. And it just is this swing back and forth. And then eventually it was, this is a great piece, but not right now. And then it'd go back, right? And then it was finally, yes, this is what I want you to do. You have my blessing. Go for it.
Think of it as a 180-degree rule. Every Christian should be willing to take a step of faith 180 degrees in front of them, but not 180 degrees behind them. Walk forward in confidence and ask God to direct your steps. Be in His Word. His Word is a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. And the man devises in his heart his own plans, but the Lord establishes his steps. We have to be willing to dream and think about things that may not be done by anyone else. The second floor experience is not being done by anyone else.
Exactly. What you want to do may not even exist yet.
Yeah.
My gaming industry, there's only a few guys that have been doing it longer than me. I don't even consider myself to be a pioneer in the sense of after knowing all of them. But what I specifically want to do is something that nobody else has done. Why? Because we were created for such a time as this. If we were supposed to be in World War II like I always wanted to be, we would have been there. My knee would have blown out and I wouldn't have made it past the beach, but right? But God has created us for such a time with such a purpose. And it's not just like, oh yeah, you were supposed to be meeting the people you are and around. No. You were crafted beyond your imagination as the best fit, the one who had the most potential to accomplish one specific or multiple specific goals that God knew were coming into place and has set up opportunities for you to grow, not predestination. But you are so prized in that way. Like there is something.
Yeah.
Whether you're just a mother to your kids, shout outs to the moms that are just hammering it out.
Literally.
Whether you're the dad who just works the 9 to 5 to provide a stable income. Whether, I mean, you've told me before, it's your dad worked a steady and consistent job to make sure that you guys were taken care of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be the thing.
Yeah.
It could be. You don't need to be a world changer. You need to change the world around you. Not the whole thing, just what God has put within your reach.
Dimes.
And so finding the purpose, finding that way is just take the step of faith. If it's wrong, there is grace for that. Don't be an idiot, but try something that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And it's okay because God's going to be with you. And as long as you're relying upon him, you're communicating to him, you're making sure that everything that you do is going to be for his glory. Even if you mess up, you can learn from that and not make the same one twice.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we talked about with Lawrence and how like the doors. Like I think it is very similar to when you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. You kind of do just have to take a step. And if you choose the wrong door, so to speak, then God will, if you're pursuing a relationship with God above all, and that's the forefront of everything that you're doing, then God will kind of like shift you and nudge you in the right direction, even if you choose a wrong door. And I think that a lot of times you might have an idea, kind of like what you said. You have these ideas of like things you want to do, and you're trying to like put all these puzzle pieces together. And I do think that God will call you to things that you don't want to do to reach the point where you want to be.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the really difficult part sometimes. I'm kind of speaking from my personal experience because I feel like that's kind of been my road, so to speak, for the past 3 or 4 years now. Because coming out of SAGU, I was planning on moving home and being back with all my family and everything, but I really felt like this nudge that God was calling me to stay in Texas. And I was like, man, I really do not want to stay in Texas, dude.
Same.
Yeah.
Same place.
But it's been a tough journey being away from family and close friends and everything. But, I don't know if I could say, this whole thing that we're doing, like me and Joseph, is amazing. And I love that I'm a part of this, that we're doing this. It's definitely one of the coolest things I think I've ever set out to do. But as far as really understanding what it is that I feel like I'm made for in life, I don't feel like I've reached that yet. But kind of like Joseph said, like I'm in that phase where like pieces are coming together. And even just all the time that I've been here, like the life experience that I've gained and just the knowledge and growing up, that I wouldn't trade for anything. So it's just part of the journey, I think.
And can I tell you this? The only way I know what I want to do is because of all the craziness I've experienced. You're figuring it out without what I've done. How wonderful that you didn't need to go through what I went through because I walked in the permissive will of God. Even if you don't have the exact answer yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much better.
It's better than going the other direction.
Yeah.
So much better than pulling a Jonah and saying, I'm out. See you later. Just get brought back by a whale and tossed up on the sea.
Yeah.
And he's like, go do what I've told you to do. The difference between what we can do now as compared to what he did is we can go do the job and then be joyful and rejoice in what happens.
Yeah.
True. That's a great point. Well, and speaking about like what your mission is and your purpose is called Project Wilderness.
Yeah.
And this is the culmination of your whole story you've been telling for the past few hours. This is your launch pad, right? And so we've had several conversations over the past few months about what it is, but even more than that, each week it seems like God is opening doors to all these freaking crazy connections and people.
It's crazy.
It's insane. We could spend days here just talking about all the ways he's already opened that. Could you kind of give us an idea of what Project Wilderness is and a snapshot of where you think God's taken you?
Yeah. So I've been coaching esports for 3 years at SAGU, right? The first year we got into the spring semester and I did something called the youth circuit where I went into 10 different churches and hosted Super Smash Brothers tournaments for them. Then I took those top 3 players from each church and invited them back to the school for a finale. And so that was the youth circuit. It's a pretty cool idea. Churches liked it. Some of them didn't get back to me. Some of them moved on. And I didn't think it was the opportunity to have that again. And so I was like, well, that's something, but I feel like there needs to be a mission behind what I do. I can't just play video games, A, B, tell other people how to play video games, and C, just kind of stay locked up in a room, right? Like we need to be ministering. I can't play all 13 possible games that we can have teams for at the competitive level. So what can I do? Well, I can pour into their hearts, into their minds, establish and build a foundation for them with ministry and esports with Christ as a cornerstone, and let them build up from there. And so 2 years ago, I did all the camps for the North Texas district of the Assemblies of God with all their summer camps. We just went in, hosted Smash tournaments, and just got a chance to minister and love on the kids. Tons of work, tons of time. I had to unlock so many Super Smash Brothers switches. I think today I did my 13th one. So that's like a 4-hour, 8-hour project for each one. So
whoa, what?
I've beat that game to unlock all the characters that many times.
Oh my gosh.
So
just
lots of playing that game. Like it's burned into my brain. We get like halfway through the camps and I'm just brain dead. But I've taken guys on these trips and taught them how to run tournaments and stuff like that, how to minister to kids, what's the etiquette and the conduct, because there's sometimes where they're like, this kid's so arrogant, and I'm like, dude, he's 13. Relax, okay? Don't get in a fight with this kid just because he's not good. Like, just leave him alone. He's here to have fun and meet Jesus. And so last year, I quit admissions, went and did the North Texas camps again, and I just really felt like I needed to go home. There's a lot of turmoil and emotions and things where I was just like, I have no idea what my future holds. I was in the same boat where I was like, I feel like there's pieces, but I don't know. So I go to Southern California. I asked the district youth director there if I can host camps or host tournaments at the camp. And he's like, yeah, because that's where I was from. He knew me a little bit. And so he just kind of took the risk and was like, yeah, you can do it. So I get there, and on the first day, the network director came up to me and he goes, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm Zac Wilkey. And he's like, yeah. Were you married? Are you married? And I was like, I was, but because my wife had an affair, and I couldn't tell him the whole story. He's a busy guy. And he just looks at me and he goes, you need to get your credentials and be a U.S. missionary. And he walked away. And I was like, huh? I'm sitting next to the camp speaker. It's Reggie Dabbs. Very popular.
What?
Yeah. Me and dude, we're just chilling. Like, we were homies for that.
No way, dude. He is awesome.
He's amazing.
He's awesome. He comes to our church all the time to speak.
Yeah, he's amazing. So I was just like, oh, okay. And Reggie's like, you gotta listen to the man. And I was like, I guess.
That's
and
awesome.
I had to really sit and pray and think about it. And I came under such a spiritual attack that day when Reggie was speaking. I had to leave like the auditorium and go into this open spot and just pray. And I called my parents and I was like, can you guys pray with me? And walked through it. And that's when God really spoke to me. And he's like, have you ever gone hungry? Have you ever not had a roof over your head? have you ever not, had a bed to sleep in? And I was like, no. And he goes, look at the flowers of the field. I will make sure you're taken care of. Are not the birds of the air fed? I will take care of you. And he was like, just put your faith and trust in me. And then he gave me that directive of go build my house for my bride. I'll worry about your house and your bride. And I was like, okay. And that kicked off Project Wilderness. So I ended up meeting a bunch of people, having connections, and people asked me to do big projects to present to them, which I'm finally starting to do. And we get to the car ride, the road trip, and finally just had the motivation to be like, okay, write it all down. And I met a bunch of people within the assemblies, but I didn't meet anyone in like the Nerd Culture Ministry Collective. That's kind of the term for anything that's ministry in that way. And then in December, at the end of December, I just got connected with one guy, and then another guy, and then another guy. Now I'm having monthly meetings with like people from around the world doing gaming ministry from like all sorts of countries. And I don't know how this happened.
That's actually wild.
I just kind of woke up one day and was like, Lord, I need you to make things happen. And that's been the prayer ever since. It's just, Lord, I need you to make anything that's going to happen. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I need you to direct every single one of my steps. Proverbs also gives the scripture of, it's a glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory of kings to seek it out. And so asking that question of like, what is the next thing? Right. And so what is the next step? So I've just been praying about that. I now have connections in a lot of different states internationally. I just got back from New York yesterday, and we had a tournament up there for the school, but I had a guy in Pennsylvania who I had connected with in like January, and he was like, can you come out? And I was like, we're actually going to be there. And so I got to hang out with him and minister with him there. But Project Wilderness, sorry, to get to the actual...
No, that's great context.
Is the culmination of Jesus going into the wilderness for 40 days, fully trusting on God. Now, I talked about my ministry before. The title of that was Wilderness Fellowship Gaming. That wilderness resembled more of Exodus and Deuteronomy and Numbers, where Israel did not trust God fully, where they did not enter the promised land, where they did not do the thing that he told them to do because they were scared. I was afraid of the giant of money, of school, of leaving home, of not seeing that God would come through my future, of wanting to do it all on my own. And that's exactly what the 10 spies were scared of. They were like, we were grasshoppers in our eyes and theirs. They thought of themselves as small. And so instead of God, God still provided for Israel in those 40 years. He provided for me for sure. But there was things that I had to go through, consequences that happened. And so this is now the 40 days of Jesus going into the wilderness where it's like nothing, no food, no water. God's providing everything. So this is my last semester coaching. I got the word from the Lord where it was like, yeah, 3 years is what you've got. And I was like, okay, well, if this is 3 years, then I'm fully trusting whatever you have. So I've started at 501c3. It's called Project Wilderness. But the ministry is planting and creating esports ministries throughout the U.S., whether it's through training and coaching people to do this by building the bridge between the church and gamers, or finding people that already have their ministries and enhancing them, coaching, teaching theirs, hosting tournaments wherever, going to summer camps. I've put a proposal in for a national esports circuit within the assemblies that I'm working on and getting stuff figured out.
Dude, that'd be sick.
Just what I'm saying.
That'd be sick.
But it's come to a point where I've had to sit there and understand that two things, maybe three, but for sure two. Number one, God has set this on my heart. And so no matter what happens, I'm pursuing this. I can't get rid of it, no matter what. If I fail while daring greatly, and I'm content with that. Number two, everything in my past that has disqualified me, God has redeemed me for and qualified me to do because no one else has done it. No one else is doing it. And so if no one else, why not me? We're made for such a time as this. Number three, it's a genius idea, and 94% of kids are playing video games. That stat's been the same since 2008.
Yeah.
So why not minister to those that are lost, to those that find solace in watching other people play games, to those that find their only community in that? we're privileged to be here in person. I drove 2 hours for this. Fun 2 hours. Almost fell asleep on the way. Not a bad deal. I made it, right? Praise the Lord. There's people that are 15 minutes away from churches, that churches are willing and welcome to minister to them, but they won't go because there's nothing that interests them. And then there's other churches that are hosting big youth events and they're bringing inflatables, which are cool. And they're bringing game trucks, but the game trucks are only like, hey, you 6 can play for 15 minutes and then we're switching you out. Also, we're not going to pay attention to you and minister to you. That's not the goal. My goal is to go out, host these tournaments, host events, parties, whatever. I don't care what it is, man. I'm an event coordinator now. Like that's my new job.
Yeah.
But to not only do that, but bring ministry into the effect of I'm going to hang out. Everyone that I bring is going to hang out, interact with, minister, mentor your kids while we're there. It's not just a, hey, you bought me for 2 hours. It's, hey, I will show up and do whatever it takes to make sure that they're pointed to Christ. There's multiple ways that they can do that. I can go out and preach the gospel to them. Sure. They will also know that we are Christians by the way we love one another and the same love that we show them. If we have a kid that shows up to play video games that he's too scared about doing anything else, maybe because, I don't know, he's in a wheelchair and can't go around and do the Iron Man with everyone at a camp. Dude, if I spend an hour or two with this kid at camp, it'll make his experience so much better because he says, hey, this guy was willing to sit with me. This guy had legs and he was willing to not do anything except hang out with me in the thing that I'm good at or interested in or have the ability to do.
Yeah.
So that's the heart behind
Seriously, dude.
Sorry.
I can't believe you.
You're trying to disturb his arm. What the
Bro,
heck?
just throw your phone.
Yeah, throw it like
Get rid
if it
of
was
it.
watched, dude. Oh,
Kobe.
What you just said right there
Screen.
makes me want to like run a freaking marathon because that was like an inspirational speech. That makes me just want to like run through a wall.
Run through that one.
Yeah.
It's brick. I don't know if I can.
Bring it on. Be better. But yeah, so I mean, when I went to New York, the chance that I had my 3 athletes play games with the kids, and I got to talk to the guy who I was meeting with. Got so much information from him, and we just kind of went back and forth. It's a new space, so there's a few leaders, and the rest of us are kind of like we were shepherds like taming our sheep. I can get into that. I will get into that later. Let me go with this story first. So we get there, and he's like, "You're going to talk with me to the parents. We're going to do a Q&A." And I was like, I've never done that before. I don't know, like I'm not qualified. Like immediately I was just like, I'm not old enough. I'm 25 years old, whatever. I found whatever excuse. And then we sat down and the parents started asking questions. And dude, it's like, shoot, God's given the wisdom, experience, and knowledge to both of us to answer these in such unique and biblical ways. Where one parent was like, what do I do if my kid's just disobeying me? And like, do I take away the games? He lives out on a farm 2 hours away from everyone else, and that's his only social interaction. How do you answer that question? I mean, to me, I'm like,
Dang.
7 belt loops, man. That thing can run out real quick. Discipline your kid, let him know that they're loved and why you did it, and move on, right? But how do you answer that challenging question? Yeah, I don't know. How do you want your kid to be depressed because they're not talking to anyone, or what are you supposed to do with that? So just cool, amazing opportunities where the Holy Spirit just like moved and answered those questions. And I was like, this is part of what I want to do so much more. Like it's just refining. Every day it's refining what Project Wilderness is. So it's new, it's coming, it's going to be events and stuff like that. But I think more so just discipleship on a level of how can we train leaders who are in the gaming ministry space, and how can we affect parents and students and youth pastors and the church and bring all of them to the same spot where it's like, hey, this is how we move forward. This is how we progress. This is how we reach more people. So,
Wow. I love that.
yeah. When I'm sorry, here's the other story.
Yeah.
So when I got my calling to go into youth ministry and I didn't do it, the scripture that was given to me was 1 Samuel 16 or 17, 34 through 37. And it's David talking to Saul about Goliath. And he goes, listen, I've been tending my father's sheep since I was a boy. And when the lion or bear came, I grabbed it by its mane and I struck it and killed it. This Philistine will be one of the same. And Saul's like, go with you where or go ahead. May the Lord be with you.
Mm.
Right. I felt like that verse called to me for a long time because I was like, go tend the sheep, go be the shepherd. And so I was like, youth pastor, youth ministry, right? And go do those things. But I didn't realize that it was not just that, but my coaching too. Because now I've gone from being the shepherd boy where I was underground. Like these people in the gaming ministry have been around for a while. Like they were having conventions and meetups and things. And I only knew like one guy throughout the whole 2 years before that was doing something. And he was just doing his own thing, going to college too. And so I was like, yeah, I'm just tending my flock, minding my business, focusing on what I have. I didn't have plans for expansion. I didn't have plans to do anything. It's just, God, what do you have for me every day? Then December came, January came, and I got called up to the front lines where now it's like, hey, Zach, you have this unique solution to this giant of a problem. And you've been training, killing the lions and the bears that were coming up, everything that came up while you were coaching, every issue you had to deal with, everything that you had to learn from your divorce, all these things as you were training and guiding and leading your sheep as your shepherd. You are now called up to be the warrior and go step out and do it.
Mm.
And I was reading this to one of my athletes the other day because he was telling me all the things he wants to do with gaming ministry now. Because I was like, what does it look like for you in the future? And he was like, boom, laid it out to me. And I was like, let me read this. And I read it and it's full circle. Like it was part 1 scripture, part 2, just fully revealed. So it's been amazing to do this and to step into this. And it's kind of hard to leave the program in the sense of like, that's what I knew for 3 years.
Yeah.
But I was scared that I didn't make a difference for a very big reason. Like we took 2 undefeated national championships in 2 years.
Jeez.
I don't think we have a chance for the undefeated, but we can get a championship again this semester. And I didn't see any fruit being born in any of my athletes. And then that last November when we hosted the tournament and a bunch of them wanted to quit, I was like, I'm a failure. I'm not doing anything right. They don't want to be a part of the program. And I now have had like at least 12 of the athletes I've mentored who are like, hey, so this is my plan for esports ministry and this is what I want to do with this. And I saw all the fruit and I was just like, Lord, thank you for even letting me try. Because I took hard soil, had to till the ground, didn't have much help, had to plant the seed, pray for rain and pray for the harvest. And now it's bearing fruit. And they're going to take this program after me to completely different places.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to see.
Gosh.
So I'm excited for Project Wilderness. I'm excited for the future of SAGU Esports too, because it's not going to be in my vision anymore. My vision was only to build. And so their vision is to refine and expand and make it creative, make it so much more beautiful than I had the capacity to. It's wonderful.
Dude, what was it like doing esports at SAGU?
Because if you were there when we were there, I guarantee you, like, almost everybody on second floor would have done that.
I don't know how to explain
Which
this.
would have been wild.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
I did.
We were the first esports ministry.
It would have been hell there.
Yeah.
Second floor.
Yeah, second floor would have been the arena. It was challenging.
Well, okay, so where did they have it? Like, where did you guys...
McCafferty Hall.
Yeah.
So if you sit in McCafferty Hall in the admin building, you stand on the stage and look. There's 3 sets of windows where the old balcony for the chapel used to be. They walled that up and built us an arena in there.
No way.
Yeah. It's smaller, but it's pretty big and it suits our needs. It's not pretty, but it does everything we
Yeah.
need.
So what all games... Was it just Smash Bros. That y'all did?
So
or...
we launched with like 6 or 7 to start. It was Smash, Valorant, Overwatch 1, Rocket League, and
That's my game.
NBA, Madden, and FIFA.
Okay.
And so we did okay the first semester. I was also playing on Smash. The second semester, I was a full-time student. We had 13 teams with 9 individual games. I played on 3 of the teams.
13 teams? Dang.
And we made playoffs for all of them.
Dang.
So it was, when you ask me how was coaching, how was doing that, I mean, I still got summa cum laude. I don't know. I focused too much on playing.
Yeah.
And I didn't focus enough on coaching. I was still younger, but for me, I wanted to compete. I wanted to at least have the chance, and so I was selfish in that. The second semester was okay. We did the youth circuit, and that was wonderful. Third semester was more about refining what we had built and making sure we had the structure to support it. So we started to build that structure. The fourth semester, we got our second championship. We got our first one in the second semester.
I didn't see that in the SAGU headlines, dude.
Weird.
What the heck?
Yeah, crazy. It's just tinning my sheet. But the fourth semester, I graduated and then switched to admissions. So at the end of it, it kind of fell off. This last semester was just rough, rebounding. Everyone was stressed out. Like it wasn't just I did a bad job. Like there was a lot going on at the school at the time that freaked everyone out. So, by the way, it's not SAGU anymore.
Nelson
University. And
Love
I
that.
want it so
What
bad.
do you think about that?
So bleep this out. I like the name. I don't think it's too bad. The structure of the school as like who actually is running it, who makes decisions, won't change. Should still have the AG focus. The students that come in are not going to be completely focused on ministry. If they're going to be there, they're going to be there no matter what the name is. That's how I showed up.
True.
I showed up by the will and providence of God and being obedient after a third time. So to me, the name change doesn't entirely matter. What I want the name for the esports team to be, and this one we can bleep out, please, is NU Esports. That way we're NU.
Oh dang! No one's gonna get that.
Man,
I mean, we don't have to. But it's not like they're gonna fire me, right?
You're already quitting.
I'm already quitting, so
Leave it in.
leave it in. Freaking hilarious. I've been saying this for like a year now. It's just they're like we want to be Nelson U or Nelson University, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. There's some other things that don't though. They don't need to be said. But the esports team, I was able to build it out to where the structure was not SAGU Esports all the time. We changed the logo and we changed the name to be Lion Esports because we knew that was going to stay. So Lion Esports is going to be the thing. So it's not just like Nelson University Esports.
Nice.
It'll still be registered with any team that sees us as Lion Esports.
I like
as the school sees it, it'll be Nelson, but we'll still run
Nice.
how we did. Because there's a lot of stuff
like
that the
that a
school
lot.
does that can't suit the needs for an esports organization.
Weird.
Crazy. That was crazy once.
I'm just curious, like, how do you coach like an esports athlete?
Get in there.
So there's a lot of discipline.
Is it like, you know, obviously like going over like strategies and everything, but then also do you do like drills?
So
and stuff, or
let me ask you this. Can you operate 13 machines at one time?
can I?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I've never tried, but I imagine it'd be pretty difficult.
And how sloppy would all 13 machines run?
Probably pretty sloppy.
Right? So
That SAGU internet, dude.
Yeah. So I can't competitively compete and be at the same level as all my athletes in all their games. Right? So what does that make me? If I can't coach them directly on their game and how it should be played, which I can give them good advice for the most part, I'm more like an athletic director. And so I assign students that know the games better to the teams that they should run, and then volunteer coaches that have been coming in and God's been blessing me with to have do those things.
That's so cool.
Okay.
So I set up the structure for how the program runs, build the framework, and say, you guys can paint it, make it colorful, do whatever you want. Do not come outside of this parameter. And so they get to do that.
I love that type of leadership.
That's cool.
I had to learn that.
Empowered leadership, man.
It was rough.
That's how we run the fencing company.
Yep.
Empowered leadership.
So it was rough to get to that point because I was very much so a micromanager. For the first year, I micromanaged everything. I had to, because we had to figure out what worked, what didn't work, what to tweak, who not to trust, where do we put things at. The second year was more about building that student leadership team, and then at the end of the fifth semester, the student leadership team I had to cut down because there was a lot of things that I was putting on them. Not as a bad thing, but they had to worry about. Let me say this. Played football, right? Both of you guys?
In high school.
Yeah. When you played football, did you have to go up to the grandstand and turn on the camera and broadcast and then run down and do a play?
No.
Nope. Esports players shouldn't have to do that either. If they're going to be athletes, let them focus on playing their game. That's like the big advice that I have to give. Because I went out and was like, we're going to run a stream every night because we have matches every night. And so we had a full-fledged like 6 probably more than 6 months, 12 months of just straight production whenever competition was happening.
Gosh.
So everyone was competing once a week. Last semester, they were in 2 leagues, so twice a week, having 2 practices and a production. Now, don't get me wrong, the hour count still wasn't as much as probably some other sports or some other programs. But the mental strain of putting it on people is rough. And so I cut the student leadership team, took my assistant coaches aside and said, if we're going to let our people do the thing, they need to just play the game. So we cut all the extra stuff out. Not writing articles, not doing broadcasting, nothing like that. If they want to do that when I leave, they can do it. I have no problem with that. What I needed to do is train people how to lead. And so I found the key people that are like, you have this potential, you have the want and drive. One of them is like assistant director in the actual league we compete in right now. Another one works at a gaming lounge. 2 of them have given me plans to draw up for esports teams. One of them wants to create a local esports ministry at high schools. And it's just like, that is the fruit. Not me being able to coach them and like do this move in this game. I gave them some of that. But what they've taken from me, what I've discipled into them, was how to build out esports ministries.
Dude, you're dropping so many freaking leadership dimes, like subtly that hopefully people are catching. And I'll just touch on what we could spend another hour talking about them, but just one that stood out to me was there's a time to be a micromanager and there's a time to be an empowered manager or to be like a detached manager. And I used to think that you only could be one or the other. But there are certain people that you have to micromanage. In fact, they can only function when they have extreme accountability. And there are other people like me that need to just have a structure and say, get crazy. Do what you want to do inside of the structure. You have complete creative freedom, but here are the borders.
Working at Del Taco is my first job. Good structure, was not micromanaged. Working at Starbucks was micromanaged and I hated it. Worked in my dad's office, had a little bit of both, but I understood how my dad worked. So I kind of manipulated that system. Not in a way of like I did less work, but I knew how to take care of my job, do it well, and also manage him. Manage how he would react, predict what he would do. Working for esports, that was like, hey, what do you guys want me to do? And they say, go do your thing. And I was like, what do you mean? what do you mean? You know, like where's my direction? And they're like, you're good, go. They gave me enough rope to hang myself with, which was beautiful until you mess up really bad. But I never did. I've never been caught. And then when I worked at admissions, it was micromanaging. And I hated that. And so I kind of just found that point where it's like, okay, micromanaging works to train, but I do not need to be micromanaged. Don't be over my shoulder. I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. That's
the worst, dude. That's the worst.
Don't be like, you need to hit these numbers. I know what my work is. I know what my calling is. I'm disciplined and motivated.
Read the room.
Yeah, leave me alone. if something's not going right, I probably just don't need to be there.
Yeah,
like
true.
I don't really want to give up on anything that I set out to do.
Exactly.
I die hard. I burn hard. Like I will crash hard.
The Hindenburg.
Yep, absolutely. Go straight. Like it's just rough, you know. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I do need to have that space. Let me cook. Let me innovate. Even if I hate it, because I hate coming up with new stuff. I hate having to like build it out. But now I've found a point where it's like, I don't want anything but that. It's the entrepreneur mindset.
Dang, dude. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because
no, I mean it was fantastic.
That's a banger way to end, man.
Yeah,
like just ending on.
It's part 1, right?
Project Man. Project
like
Wilderness.
A brief intermission.
Well, thank you guys for listening. We're gonna have all of Zach's stuff linked up. This Zac linked up.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see our stuff linked up.
No.
This Zac linked up. Instagram, Project Wilderness stuff, business email. Reach out to him, DM him if you have any questions about what we talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
About anything.
Yeah. Seriously. I'm honestly, they're open in a sense of like, if you have any questions, I don't care what they are. Ask them.
And if you're a woman of God single, we're not saying don't, we're not saying do, but you
build
see...
my house for my bride.
Dude, we'll put your number up if you want.
I think my number's just already out places. Like, I am not hidden.
And especially if you have any business inquiries for Zac regarding a camp you want him to go to, an event, a church, youth group, whatever, we will have his business email up again. Have a great day. Have a great night. Wherever you are.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great time.
Try my
Peace.
best.
Is that out? We came one out.
Now, 10 seconds before the
Yay!
I want to talk to you. Not now. Later. No, now.
Okay, real quick, let's just do that little sketch for the outro.
If you want to do something, we can switch the battery.
No. Just it just needs to be on the audio.
Okay.
Just what was that thing that we just said? It was the quote of
Immature people.
You want to say that? You want to use that?
I mean, I dropped.
yeah. We
much
might have to
worse.
bleep that out. I'm not sure, but
I'm sure.
What did we even say that was so funny?
Lesson 2: separating from.
Yeah, yes. Never mind.
You know what Zack asked? Because we were like, have you read that? And I goes, what was lesson 1? That's the second part. What was the first part?
Man.
We can use that and just bleep out the part.